8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And away we go on a Tuesday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. David Turner sitting in today for James Wesley. We got Will Connerly in as well. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. You know, yesterday I talked about, I went to Mesa Verde National Park while I was in Colorado. And it was the second national park I've gone to this summer, which was really cool. But I got an email from recreation.gov, which is if you want to buy like passes for national parks or any of the tours, whatever else they have, you go to recreation.gov, and that's where you buy them. So they sent me an email sort of asking for reviews. You know, rate your experience at Mesa Verde National Park.
Sounds like you're giving it a 5-star?
I mean, it's a national freaking park.
It sounds like 5-star material. I like where this is going.
It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Like, what are we doing here? I feel like we live in a society of where you've got to rate everything at all times.
Fair.
And, like, just I get, like, certain businesses sending you review us after, but, like, dear National Park Service, I had a terrible time at your national park, in quotes. This 3.5-mile hike was very long, seemed like a lot longer than 3.5 miles, and wasn't entirely paved. Like, what? What are the complaints here? More gift shops? How about hot dog vendors on the hikes? Wouldn't that be fun? 2 miles into a 3.5-mile hike, you get a hot dog vendor?
Absolutely.
We just have this hilarious rating society where you've got to rate everything and everybody wants to be rated. It's a national park. Like, you know what you're kind of going in for. I don't know what you'd rate or review or it's amazing. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Glad I got to go. Like, what? Didn't see any animals. Very upset.
You know what? I might disappoint you a little bit. I have actually never been to a national state park, but I have been to state parks.
So you've never been to a national park, but you've been to state parks?
Yes. I went to Belgrade Lakes, Maine about 10 years ago, and it was one of the most incredible, beautiful experiences that I've ever been and envisioned myself. And when I was there, I mean, it's a state park, and the reserve there, the water, they're reserved. There's like state reservations, and it's really amazing. Like when you swim in the water, I know we talk about in the Caribbean how clear and beautiful everything is, but even though this is a state spring, a water spring in the state of Maine, I mean, the water felt so refreshing. It felt super clean.
Did you get to review the state park after you went?
I did not.
Give it a good review?
It was like before we entered that society. This was like 2014 or so, before we were rating
reviews.
Everything. Yeah.
I was wondering, too, when I went to Acadia in Maine, Acadia National Park in Bar Harbor, Maine, earlier this summer, I didn't get a rate your experience email from recreation.gov. Maybe I did, or maybe like they're having some issues at Mesa Verde and they need to get those finalized.
It went to your spam.
Not sure which one, but that hit my inbox, and I'm like, I'm not going to rate a national park. It's amazing. National park, state park, whatever it is. It's I always enjoy going, so it's a lot of fun. All right, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Some pretty big news dropped last night, but it's a lot of law speak, so I'll try to make my way through the things that I know, because there's probably a lot that's unknown here. But if you've been paying attention, there's a lawsuit that was filed in the state of Colorado after the NCAA ruled that the 5-year eligibility window is the new rule for eligibility, whether it's 5 years postgraduate or from 19 years old, whichever one comes first. So a lawsuit against it was finalized and approved by a judge in Colorado. Well, so the NCAA goes into immediately try to get this to be paused while the courts decide what eligibility can look like. But the judge last night decided to deny that motion. So as of right now, 2022 players are quote-unquote eligible for the upcoming season, those that many of which were not initially eligible or are fighting in separate courts for eligibility, which makes this really interesting. The NCAA's entire argument for pausing the ruling was basically like it'll be mass chaos, which it will be, with rosters blown up, freshmen displaced, camps already open, it's too much damage, hit pause while we appeal. And her answer was, you created this chaos. Judge Sweeney in this case said, you built this chaos, so I'm not going to basically give you credit for the chaos you created by establishing this rule without, any rationale behind it. Basically, what you wrote was nobody forced the NCAA to change its eligibility rule in late June, weeks after the school year ended, weeks before fall camp. Nobody forced it to give 5 years to everyone going forward while cutting on one specific class of players. That was a choice the NCAA made on its own timeline. So basically, that choice allowed the group to coalesce and form this lawsuit. And, it will absolutely create a level of chaos. But again, Judge Sweeney is saying that you created that chaos. So this all goes back to how the NCAA, again, decided by its own self to establish a rule without any sort of talking with players themselves or collectively bargaining, which is why we're back here in court. So if anybody's wondering why everything ends up in court, it's simply because the NCAA is establishing its own rules without any sort of oversight, and now the courts are providing that oversight.
Yeah, I feel like the NCAA has become that kid in the summer who did absolutely no summer reading, and then when the school starts back up and you're taking your test and they have absolutely no idea what the answer is. I don't think they know what they're doing. The NCAA is just kind of, entering, we'll go to court, we'll do this. You can't do that. Oh, well, we'll do this. No, you can't do that either. The NCAA, I feel like every time we talk about them, they come up with a plan that they know isn't going to work, but they have to do something to show that they're at least doing something, even though it's going to amount to nothing.
Yeah, and it's important to note, too, that, this only gives 2022 athletes a fifth year. It does not, quote-unquote, enjoin transfer rules. It doesn't enjoin itself with the House settlement, so the House settlement is still a part of this. So, it'll be really interesting to see what happens in terms of the transfer portal, because if you've got players that now have eligibility but are stuck at their school without a roster spot, will they be able to transfer? Right now it says no. So basically you've got to be in the right spot at the right time in terms of in camp. And there's lots of players we'll talk about in the Big 12, Hosea Wheeler from Baylor, many others that are right now in camp, hoping that this ends up in their favor because they've got separate court lawsuits that they're trying to get that extra eligibility. So, again, I'm super ready for football. We are 18 days away now officially, which is amazing. But I think this might have a greater impact in basketball than it will in football. You think about Melvin Council for Kansas, who's a guy that's already fighting for eligibility for a fifth year of eligibility at the University of Kansas. There's plenty others like it. But this ruling will give them a lot more runway to sort of get this sorted out, whereas with football, it's like the train is leaving the station. So it's really difficult to figure out all that stuff.
Yeah, 2.5 weeks left till football starts. This will have a definite impact on basketball. I remember James and I were talking last week about what are these rosters going to look like when the season starts with these, NCAA ruling, with courts, blah, blah, blah. But with football being 2.5 weeks away, this is, I think we know what we're going to see with football. With basketball, still a question mark.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And with football, too, I still think it remains to be seen in terms of your roster ability, roster availability, the transfer portal, the rules that are already in place. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how this plays out, and we'll obviously be paying attention to it. Why won't anybody play Texas Tech, Taman? So there's a quote from Joey McGuire that Brett McMurphy got, and it shows the ways in which Texas Tech is struggling to fit their future non-conference. Joey McGuire tells Brett McMurphy of On3, Texas Tech can't find future games with Texas A&M, USC, NC State, and Mississippi State saying no or canceling their series. Quote, we're talking to everybody and anybody. So far, everybody's told us no, end quote. McGuire told Brett McMurphy, quote, if Texas cancels, we'd love to play a home-and-home series with Notre Dame. I've talked to Notre Dame coach Marcus Freeman. He would love to that also, end quote. So, look, there's a few things at play here. Number one, I asked the question, why wouldn't anybody play Texas Tech? And that's sort of a failed reasoning, because this is happening everywhere. There's multiple factors at play here, but number one, the ACC and the SEC adding a ninth conference game meant that they had one less game available. And we know the SEC is trying not to schedule Power 4 opponents. So it's not just Texas Tech. There are a lot of teams. NC State itself lost games with South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. Other series that have been scrapped, Cal, BYU, Georgia, Louisville, Miami, South Carolina, Alabama, West Virginia, Nebraska, Tennessee, Ole Miss, BYU, Ole Miss, USC, and Cal, Florida. So that's not Tech. That's an SEC, ACC, both went to 9 games thing. plus the Big 12 and the Big 10 have already been at 9. I also think, like, what a sad state of affairs. We've talked a lot about the playoff and how it impacts the regular season. Well, we're going to see within the next 5 to 10 years how much it impacts the regular season because of all these premier non-conference games being canceled. It's going to reduce the amount of premier non-conference games we have. So the expansion of the playoff has, in effect, made the regular season less important and by virtue of playing less Power 4 opponents. Now, I believe, I'm assuming the Big 10 and the SEC will play each other, but it's going to really shut out the Big 12, which is not great news. At the same time, though, the Big 12 has in its bylaws that you have to play at least one Power 4 non-conference opponent. We've seen this floated by Brett Yormark because he can see the writing on the walls. Would it be more influential for the Big 12 to go to 10 conference games instead of having that 9th game, which are, the guaranteed Power 4 out of conference game, because Texas Tech doesn't have one this year. Either does Arizona or Houston. They couldn't get those scheduled. So the question is, should they go to a 10-game conference schedule?
I'm not against that. I hate how some of these schools you mentioned, A&M, USC, NC State, Mississippi State, not playing Texas Tech. I know the SEC is going to shut them out. The Big Ten looks like they just want to play each other. I don't think that's fair. I think that while there's still time with the season approaching, I think that Texas Tech, if they go on and do business in the CFP this year, people will view them differently. Brett Yormark said it perfectly, I think, at Media Days. He was like, we have to be better. Based on last year when Texas Tech lost to Oregon, obviously it was not the outcome that anybody wanted, even in a loss. Like, even if Texas Tech had lost last year, let's say it was 22-19. Let's say it had been a competitive battle.
Sure.
People would view Tech a little bit differently.
But what does that mean in terms of the scheduling part of it?
Well, I think that from a scheduling part of it, I think the SEC and the Big Ten, working with TV partners, want to highlight those as the best top two. I think they're shutting out the Big 12 because they look at themselves at a different table, and they look at the Big 12 and Texas Tech at the kids table. And so from a scheduling standpoint, that's why they don't want to play the Texas Tech.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think they have a legitimate excuse because you've lost, you're losing one of your non-conference opportunities there with a 9-game schedule. If you're adding a game in conference play, that means you're losing a game somewhere else, and you're probably not going to beef it up. So again, I think this just shows how the playoff has impacted the regular season scheduling. What do you think, Will, of 10 games?
I think 10 games would be good, but I think that because of the fact that it's going to be a struggle to try to find those games. I mean, we just did it yesterday, 13 games of Power 4 opponents this season. There's some teams that couldn't get a game. Now, I don't know if it's that they can't get a game. And with Tech in particular, the angle I was thinking is we heard this summer that,
right. Well, yeah, of course.
Oh, we're not going to play Tech because of the Sorsby stuff.
That's what every fan of Texas Tech is saying in response to this. What I'm saying is that could be part of it, but the SEC, ACC scheduling is a bigger part of it because we've already seen them cancel plenty of games. It just gives a convenient excuse for those programs to use the moral high horse here on Sorsby and Texas Tech. The other thing is, like Texas is like, yeah, come on over. You can play us here. Right? Like they're getting offered road games. Texas A&M, I'm sure, would say the same thing, but Texas Tech shouldn't be in the business of accepting those bad deals essentially anymore in order to play Texas or A&M. They should get a home and home with them. So I think that's complicating the situation too. Let me ask you guys this. If they played 10 conference games, would that have an impact on playoff selection, do you think? If they played the schedule as is now and had very few Power 4 opponents in the non-conference, so you're essentially playing 9 conference games with 3, group of 4 opponents, or 1 FCS opponent and 2 group of 4 opponents, group of 5 opponents, versus 10 games and 2 opponents, what's better for the playoff? Or do you think that 10 games hurts the Big 12 more than it helps it?
Man, that's a lot to digest. I'd rather, being a football fan, I'd rather see more competitive games.
Yeah.
In the regular season.
More good games.
Right. Exactly. But I understand the opposite notion of what we see now. But if having an extra conference game means more competitive football, I mean, why are we watching football on Saturdays? We're not just watching it. Sure, we want our teams to win, but we want good games. That's what good games brings, win or loss. I mean, obviously more with a win, but win or loss, it brings more spotlight to the program, more spotlight to the Big 12. So I'd rather see the more competitive battle.
And off the dome, what is the best non-conference win the Big 12 had last year? Or what are some good ones that are notable to you guys over the last couple of years?
Well, I mean, UCF beating UNC last year. I would say what the Big 12 did against the ACC was pretty significant.
And so you lose those opportunities, some of them, if you go to 10 games, but you're also playing another Power 4 team just in your own league. So I don't think it would hurt your playoff standing.
Well, hurt only from the standpoint of another opportunity for a loss.
That, yes.
Because you're basically trading a win for a loss, potentially, right? Because you're basically saying, like, instead of scheduling an FCS and 3 group of 5 schools, like, at some point I'll get my group of and power numbers correct. But you're basically trading either FCS game or a group of 5 game for a Big 12 game. So you're trading, a 90% a win, whatever it is, 80% win, almost a guaranteed win for a coin flip in most cases, or a tough opportunity. The question is whether or not the Big 12 is viewed high enough from the playoffs' eyes to where one extra game would supersede, a group of 5 opponent. That's because it seems like a 10th game would work out for the Big 12 from a standpoint of the playoff selection. Now, also the expansion of the playoff is a factor here too, and maybe you don't have to go to 10 in order to have a better standing in terms of getting multiple teams. I'm just curious because it's been floated, and it's an interesting concept, especially as you're seeing all of these P4 games deteriorate for the Big 12.
I think when I think of some of these schools, particularly at the top, Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, Utah, Arizona, when I think of some of these schools, you're taking potentially a 90% guaranteed win for a coin flip, but if they get that coin flip win, that bolsters them a lot than what we would see with a 90% guaranteed win. I'm okay with that. I'm willing to take that risk personally.
Well, it bolsters the winner, but hurts the loser. But I mean,
right. That's the hard part. It's a gamble. If you lose, it sucks, right? But if you win, am I willing to take that gamble? And from a competitor standpoint, think about how much Joey McGuire wants to play Texas, right? If you're a competitor, you will take this because you really feel strongly that your team can win. Kalani Sitake, Joey McGuire, Willie Fritz, they want to play these teams. They want to get that win because they feel strongly about their program. So if it's going to be a competitive battle, yes, you're not going to win every single time, but when you do win, the exposure that you're going to get for your program, I'm all for it.
It's also important to note here that Joey McGuire went to Brett McMurphy to give him these quotes.
Yeah.
Right? So Joey McGuire calls up Brett McMurphy and says, hey, these things are happening, and then he shouts out Texas and Texas A&M and Notre Dame. That's not a coincidence, right? Mm-hmm. He is really digging into this idea that the college football world is out to get Texas Tech. Like, that is a major motivator in him doing this, to try to motivate his team to a degree in order to start the season. Remember what Rich Rod told us. Motivation can only get you so far. It's discipline that carries you through. So I think it's a way to motivate his team to start this season, and then hopefully they have the discipline to carry through, because I completely agree with Rich Rod's sentiment there. But he's calling those programs out to say, you're not going to play us. He mentioned Notre Dame specifically because he knows Notre Dame's not going to say yes. Most likely they're not going to say yes. Maybe they will, but most likely they're not going to say it. He knows Texas not going to say yes. He knows A&M's not going to say yes. They'll say yes if Texas Tech says, we'll come to you, but you don't have to come to us.
Right.
But why would they do that? That's why I don't, again, like, Texas Tech softball and Bracket Cat on our YouTube chat mentioned this. Join us and have your comments heard on air on our YouTube channel at Big 12 Studios. He said, the softball team is getting frozen out, which is true. That is true. Texas Tech softball is being frozen out from games. That is absolutely true. They don't want to play Texas Tech. They don't want to give them the opportunity to do it. I think it's a convenient excuse that's down the list of excuses in football. Like, if not for the 9-game SEC, ACC thing where they're losing a non-conference opportunity and the SEC is not going to take on Power 4 opponents, I think it – and then Kirby Hocutt basically saying with the expansion of the south end zone, $250 million, that they want to play home games. They want to play 7 home games a year, taking advantage of that. They have a facility to do it. They're not just taking bad deals anymore that says, yeah, come to Austin and play us at Texas, but we're not going to come back to you in Lubbock. That's a bad deal. So it's like those are 2 top reasons, and then the third reason is, now we can play the moral superiority and say that we're better than you and don't want to play you because of the Brendan Sorsby situation. I don't think that's carrying the day, but I think Texas Tech fans will feel that way, and Joey McGuire wants Texas Tech fans feeling that way.
I know we're going to talk about this later about Tech being the villain, but I love how McGuire's embracing it.
Oh, yeah.
I truly love how
he is not a villain, but he is embracing that role.
Right, absolutely. And I think that if Texas Tech becomes the quote-unquote villain, I think the fan base will love it too, because they feel that they are being singled out. Whether right or wrong, that's how they feel. We can't control how we feel. And if McGuire goes into this and keeps calling some of these schools out, going to Brett McMurphy and calling these schools out, it'll only keep raising the awareness of it a lot more.
Yeah, that's Taven Turner filling in today for James Westling. We've got Will Connerly filling in for Taven Turner. I'm Ari Temkin. It's Big 12 today. On Big 12 Radio, Trey Wallace, senior national college sports reporter for Fox, joins us coming up in about 30 minutes from now, 20 minutes from now, to help us break down the 2022 eligibility situation and the latest on the Protect College Sports Act, which is effectively dead as of now during this recess. On the way next, though, 4 new coaches in the Big 12. So who fits the best year 1 record, the biggest pressure, the best long-term hire, and the biggest year 1 turnaround? We'll answer each of those with each of the 4 coaches that are new to the Big 12 next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. We have 4 new coaches in the Big 12. So Will Connerly, who's producing today, thought let's come up with these categories and then figure out which one fits each one. And Will, I'm assuming you came up with 4 criteria, so you want one for each, or can we duplicate here?
No, you can duplicate.
Well, I created my own rule, and you can't duplicate.
Okay, you can't. I didn't duplicate when I was going through the exercise myself to see if it would be good content for Big 12 today. I didn't duplicate, but I feel like...
But you came up with 4 questions for a reason, right?
4 questions for a reason, yes. But if Taman Turner wants to duplicate, I feel like he should have that.
I don't like duplicate.
Yeah,
okay, duplicate.
I don't know why you're such a fence sitter, Will. Come with the hard opinion here. Do not duplicate. There's 4 questions. There's 4 new coaches. Let's go.
Okay, assign one to each. Let's do it.
Well,
now you're waiting for the questions, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. You teased him, right? Already teased him. But if you guys don't remember, our 4 new bosses in the Big 12. First question is, who will have the best year 1 record out of the 4 new coaches?
4 new coaches: Morgan Scalley at Utah, Colin Klein at Kansas State, Jimmy Rogers at Iowa State, and
Eric Morris.
Thank you, Eric Morris at Oklahoma State. All right, go ahead, Taman. You can lead us off.
Okay, like the easy answer would be Utah because I think they have the most complete team, even though they lost some guys on that offensive line. But I am going with Kansas State for the simple fact that their schedule complements having the best record out of these new 4 guys. I'm going with Kansas State. Colin Klein, I think he's going to do wonders for Avery Johnson. I think that's a very good fit together. We're waiting for Avery Johnson to kind of explode. Colin Klein is kind of like the original Avery Johnson, so he's giving him all the advice and everything that he knows to Avery. And again, Kansas State schedule, we ranked them 4 in our consensus power ranking. I'm going with the Wildcats.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, and for 2 reasons. One, the main one is the schedule, as you alluded to. They avoid the top 3 in the Big 12, and their 2 toughest Big 12 opponents, Houston and Arizona, are both at home. 5 of their first 6 games are at home. All 3 non-conference games, Nichols, Washington State, and Tulane, are winnable and in Manhattan. So, yeah, and then I also didn't think if we were only going to put 1 coach in each category, I feel like there's one that fits Morgan Scalley way better than best year 1 record. But you're right. Utah was the first thought I had that came to mind, but then I thought it fit a different category better. And Colin Klein, K-State, I think is poised for a huge year because of their schedule, which in many ways factors into quality teams year in and year out.
Great minds think alike.
There you go. Okay, so 4 new bosses in the Big 12, like you mentioned: Kansas State, Utah, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. Best year 1 record. You both agree on Utah. How about who has the most pressure in year 1? A lot of times in college sports, the seat doesn't really get warm until a few years into your tenure, but I feel like in this day and age, the seats get pretty warm pretty quick. So who has the most pressure in year 1?
Yeah, this is why I didn't put Utah in for the biggest, the most wins or the most success year 1. I think Morgan Scalley has the most pressure. It's a really weird situation because he's been the coach in waiting the last couple of years, and they kind of felt like, I would imagine, based on Kyle Whittingham, that there'd only be a few more years, and they had really been transitioning Morgan Scalley into this role because, as we heard from Devin Dampier, the defensive coordinator of the team picked the transfer quarterback up for the airport and was showing him around. That doesn't usually happen unless they're thinking bigger things for the head coach. And then so the pressure is based on what happens at Michigan. Weird, right? What would Utah and Michigan have to do with each other? Well, you picked the future coach over the former coach, and that former coach is now at Michigan. So I think there's going to be some scoreboard watching with Michigan, which is unfair, but it is what it is. So that to me plays into the pressure for Morgan Scalley with this season and why he's under the most pressure of all these new coaches.
I agree with Ari Temkin. It is Morgan Scalley, and for a lot of the reasons that you just said. Look, the situation at Utah from a PR standpoint, you can make the argument that they handled it pretty well, but it did not go well. Kyle Whittingham wanted to coach Utah. He wanted to come back. Utah did not want to bring him back. Morgan Scalley was the coach in waiting for a long time. He has Devin Dampier coming back. Yeah, the O-line's different. They lost guys, Spencer Fano and Caleb Lamu to the NFL, but you kind of built this defense. You were the defensive coordinator. If Utah does not have a strong year, people are always going to say, what if? And let's say Michigan has a great year. What if? What if we had just kept Kyle Whittingham? He wanted to come back here. Why is he gone? We're worse this year. They're better this year. We could have had him. Yeah, the pressure's on Morgan Scalley.
Yeah, not only that, just to sort of continue to hammer home the point, Utah went 11-2 last year, 7-2 in the Big 12. So, like, what does success look like? Is it 11-2? Is it staying the same? I mean, that would be a great year. So if there's a drop-off here, it will be viewed as a failure because they won 11 games last year. So with all the players they've lost. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure. And plus, Utah wins. That's all they do. They win lots of football games and have for many, many years. So the expectations are very high at Utah.
I mean, when Kyle Whittingham departed, you had everyone from the school to Utah politicians talking about how great Kyle Whittingham was for the state of Utah, was for the Utes, for that program. So if Morgan Scalley can't meet that or come anywhere close or better, there's going to be a lot of pressure, especially when you're comparing him to the counterparts of Colin Klein, Eric Morris, and Jimmy Rogers.
Okay, so best year one record, Ari goes with Klein, right?
Yeah.
Taven Turner goes with Scalley.
No.
No?
We're going to have
go with Klein.
All four of these are going to be the same for us. I can't imagine he's going to have Jimmy Rogers
so
year one turnaround.
You guys say great minds think alike. You started with Utah, but you ended at Kansas State for best year one record. Now you both say Scalley has the most pressure. Got it. Best long-term hire now.
I'm going with Eric Morris from Oklahoma State.
Oh,
I'm going
okay.
with, I think he is turning this program around. I think that when you think of Mike Gundy literally came in. The game had passed him by. The rules, the new college football, the way it set up NIL, it had passed him by. But he is bringing in an offense that is going to be competitive in the Big 12. They are going to, we had them, I believe, I have to look at my notes, but I believe we have them ranked 8th in the consensus preseason poll. That's very good for a first-time head coach. He's bringing in Drew Messmaker, bringing in Caleb Hawkins. He is going to be able to get talent. We know his resume when it comes to the quarterback position on who he's coached in the past. He is going to bring people to Stillwater. The defense is going to take a little bit more time. But I think Oklahoma State's willing to give him that long-term success, willing to give him that patience because they feel like he is the guy. No disrespect to Colin Klein, but is he as shocked that Kansas State hired him? No. Morgan Scalley, are we shocked that Utah hired him? No. Jimmy Rogers, I think it's a wait-and-see process. I think they're a little bit of a different situation, similar to Oklahoma State, but a little bit different because of the success that Eric Morris had at North Texas. I think that when you factor in the patience that Oklahoma State's willing to give them, they didn't hire Eric Morris to just be a short-term turnaround. Okay, we're done. We had some nice offenses type of year. They're in this for the long game with him. I think Oklahoma State is in a very good position long-term.
Yeah, I think the best long-term hire here is Jimmy Rogers. I don't know how much success they're going to see year one, but Rogers, I think, is a proven program builder, and he did it in just 1 year at Washington State. Now, I think it's a little bit more difficult to do what he did at Washington State in the Big 12, which is why I don't think they're going to have a very good year this year. But long-term, I think he's going to be fantastic. I mean, he's 33-9 as head coach across 3 seasons and 15-1 conference play. Now, that's obviously changed by the fact that the Pac-12 didn't really have conference play last year. Like, there were how many teams? 2 teams in the entire Pac-12. But yeah, for me, Rodgers. The answer is Rodgers here because it's not the best year one turnaround, which is our next question, and that to me is definitely going to be Eric Morris. When you win 1 game in total last year and have not won a Big 12 game in 2 years, and you have a team that some think could be sleepers to win the Big 12, like that's the biggest year one turnaround. In fact, it feels like that category was built for Eric Morris.
So while I kind of just threw myself into a corner here, but I am going to argue somewhat. Yes, Oklahoma State will be the biggest year one turnaround for everything Ari just said. But we all know that Iowa State is totally a different team than they were last year. Most of those guys went over to Penn State with Matt Campbell. But I will just say this. I think that there's not a lot of high expectations for Iowa State. this season. A lot of people, we in our preseason consensus poll had them ranked 15th. A lot of people have them ranked 16th. I actually think they're going to be better than that. I know words don't mean much when it comes to the game, but I am bought into what Jimmy Rogers has said at Iowa State. He said, we're going to be nitty, we're going to be gritty, we're going to fight. And that's kind of been his resume everywhere he's been. That's kind of been what his teams have been able to do. So, yeah, is Iowa State, do I expect them to have a good year? No. Jimmy Rogers said last week that he expects Iowa State to win the Big 12. I know he's a coach, and I know he has high expectations for himself, but I don't think Iowa State's going to be bad. Sure, is it a one-year turnaround compared record-wise? No, but from expectation standpoint, that most people are saying, they're going to be much better than people have them currently at.
All right, that's a look at the 4 new coaches, new boss, who wins first. Taking a look at the Big 12 first-year head coaches and some of these categories. On the way next, Trey Wallace from Outkick the Coverage and Fox joins us to talk about the Protect College Sports Act and this 2022 injunction for the 2022 class. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Plays at the line of scrimmage longer. I think actually that's probably the way
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. David Turner is in today for James Westling, who's back tomorrow. Will Connerly also in with us. I'm Ari Tepkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here in your home for the Big 12. Let's talk with our friend Trey Wallace, senior national college sports reporter for Fox. Trey, how are you?
I'm good. We're rolling along. Got the phone waiting to see when the next lawsuit's going to be filed in college athletics. But yeah, man, we're almost here. Let's get through the next 3 weeks. Get us some week 0 football, a couple of games in there to pay attention to, and then it's full steam ahead for the season.
Yeah,
Excited.
No doubt about it. Ready for some real football. Before we get to the lawsuits, I want to get your opinion. As somebody that lives in the South, and your cousin is Bubba Wallace, the Big 12 in its deal with Monster Energy had visibility in the NASCAR Cup Series race this past weekend in Iowa with the Big 12 co-branding on the Monster car, the number 35 car. I guess for those that aren't big NASCAR fans or know much, like how big of a deal is this? And does this serve as an example of how some of us may have missed in evaluating the Monster Energy deal with the Big 12?
So it's hard to put a number on when it comes to the marketing aspect. But I will say, with the Big 12 getting on the Riley Herbst card this past weekend, the 35 rides for 2311, same company as Bubba. I look at it as this is just a great way for the Big 12 to continue. Getting the name out there is one thing, but trying to get as much publicity as possible, having Big 12 reps at the race, I think at the same time, you're able to promote this on different platforms. Like, monetary wise, I don't know how much it did from if you're just watching the race, you know what I mean? Like, okay, there's the Big 12 car. And like NASCAR knows when to give a little love to the sponsors, but I think this is smart by the Big 12. Continue outreach. And when I say outreach, continue putting your product or your name of your product in front of as many people as possible. And I think when you look at it, we're also setting up to week 0 matchup where the Big 12 is going to have a very big presence overseas against North Carolina. Like, I look at this and I say, I know the Big 12 caught a lot of flack for the patch deal that then turned out, you see the other conferences or other schools that come out with higher figures for one patch deal. But you have to remember, the Big 12 is just putting their conference on this thing. Like, you still have room, on jerseys and whatever you want to do. Like, I saw the Big 12 logo that's going to be on courts moving forward. Like, in my opinion, they are doing everything that they need to do to continue to be relevant, which they are. And I'm talking about from a national standpoint, whether that be out in California, whether that be up in New York. I mean, we saw, we saw a sponsorship deal in Iowa. So I think they're doing the right things. They got to continue doing that. And I think that you're going to have a few teams on the field this year that are going to have the Big 12 in the conversation for the college football playoff, which I think only helps.
Trey, I want to talk the Protect College Sports Act because we saw it stall in the Senate over the weekend. Obviously, there's the midterms coming up. I've been an optimist about the Protect College Sports Act at some point being passed, even in the next Congress. But with the presidential election really starting right after the midterms, what are the chances that this gets passed at all, even in the next Congress?
Oh, man, that gets complicated because Friday night, when I was glued to the great old C-SPAN, while I'm getting blown up by, my whole Friday night just went to hell in a handbasket. But you got to a point where they were close, to voting on it, and then they had to punt to September. It gets tricky now because what you've done is you've given everyone involved, and even the naysayers, the senators that aren't for this, you've given them 5 weeks now to essentially break this thing down even further and find things that they don't like, find things that they want to amend, add different things to it. I think that it was also a positive, in my opinion, because I thought that they were trying to ram this thing down too quick. Like, honestly, I felt like this needed a little bit of breath. Like, give it some room here. Let's figure out what's smart, what's not smart. Like, I don't agree with the whole, hey, if you want to leave this conference, you have to go independent for 5 years. To me, that just, I understand what they're doing. They're trying to prevent the SEC and the Big Ten from coming in and raiding the ACC and the Big 12. Like, okay, fine, so be it. But I just don't agree with, hey, if you want to go grow your business by joining a new conference, that you have to go independent for 5 whole years. And so I think that one's going to get worked around. And kind of in what you were asking, just in general, you know, do I think something can go? The problem is, guys, you get back from their August recess and you're jumping right into midterm elections. You know, you're jumping into bigger problems in the country than college athletics. Like, let's just be honest. And I think that if it gets past the Senate, it's how long is it going to be in the House, you know? And then, you know, and I know we're not getting all political here, but it's like, okay, are the Democrats and the Republicans actually going to get along in the House to get something done? Like, I don't know about that. So I think that it goes multiple directions. But I do think that there was at least some hope that it would get done. And now that we sit here, and we will, we're gonna wait 5 weeks, and I think that there's going to be more amendments made to this bill. And I honestly want to deep down believe that something could be done. But again, guys, this is the political landscape in 2026. Like, you know, can they actually go full bipartisan on this thing? We're going to find out. But I just feel like there are a number of things that they need to fix. And then at the same time, you know, can you garner enough votes where this is a situation that could be won? And also, too, like, you're getting into the bulk of the college football season, and I understand that the two things are two things different. Like, I get it. It's congressional bills. It's also the season. It's also everything else that's going on. We've got CFP expansion talks. I understand one is bigger than the other, but I just do have to wonder if fatigue starts to set in a little bit with this legislation.
Yeah, I would completely agree. The same token, though, Trey, this is progress. You know, previous bills hadn't even made it out of committee.
Yep.
So, you know, it's slow progress, but progress nonetheless. You'd think, though, that the next bill after the Protect College Sports Act, whatever it is, could effectively provide more progress potentially here.
I think that this is, I honestly feel like this is it. Meaning,
really?
It's guys, we had the SCORE Act, and we had that for essentially 4 years. They were talking about it, and then all of a sudden, it was just dead. It's buried somewhere behind the Capitol. And now you've got the Protect College Sports Act, like you said, that has gotten a lot further. Like, you get it through the Senate Commerce. You're close to getting it to the Senate floor. Like, there are votes. Like, if they wanted to, in my personal opinion, like, they probably could have squeaked it over the finish line of the Senate. It wouldn't have been by a lot, because what's happening right now is senators that are for this bill, they want to win this vote by 2 touchdowns. They don't want to win it by a field goal. You know, they want to make an impression. So it's, can you do that part and then garner enough support at the next level? So I don't know if college athletics can get behind another bill. Like, this feels like this is either the one or it's not happening. And also, let's not forget, and we're just being full transparent here, it's a lot different when you have a Republican House, whether that be whatever the Republican Senate looks like, compared to, you know, a Democratic White House. Like, that's just politics.
Yeah,
and so, you know, I'm very curious to see if they don't get this one done, which I think there's a good chance they can if they just make a number of amendments here. You know, I think that's when the conferences are going to have to start trying to govern themselves until they figure out a better resolution.
Trey, last one would be on this 2022 injunction that came down last night.
Yeah.
Give us your perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, that one was expected. Okay, so that one, Judge Sweeney out in Colorado, she has been hell-bent on, I'm not in favor of the NCAA. Like, that's her stance. And she made it known in her briefs last night when it comes to the motion for a stay. The bigger thing to pay attention to that is going to have the major ramifications is the 10th Circuit of Appeals, which the NCAA has filed. So once they got their ruling, essentially in this case with Judge Sweeney, they immediately filed an appeal. That's the one to keep an eye out on, because in my opinion, that could probably come down by Friday. And if the NCAA gets a stay from the appeals court, to me, that's going to be the major ramifications on if 2022 athletes are still going to be able to participate this season. If they're granted a stay, meaning this goes into effect during the duration of the trial, then you're going to see a lot of schools having to back out when it comes to having 2022 players. But if they are to side with the district court judge, which was Judge Sweeney, and they were to deny the NCAA's appeal, guys, it's open season. Like, you're going to see more athletes coming out, getting on football rosters, and then also the basketball is the main one, but you're seeing the football kind of delve into this a little bit. But I promise you, there are a bunch of schools around the country waiting to see what happens with this appeal, because if the NCAA is not granted this appeal, you're going to see a lot more players start showing up on football rosters, I think, over the next 3 to 4 weeks. So that's the one to pay attention to. Even though last night's ruling was big per se, it really comes down to the appeals court, and the NCAA is praying they get the appeal, because I promise you, while we've been on this interview, I would imagine there's been at least 2 lawsuits filed against the NCAA. The big one yesterday was former Florida State quarterback, along with others, filed suit in South Carolina, and that was Thomas Castellones, to essentially get an injunction and become eligible for the upcoming season. So, guys, we're about to find out. I'd say stay tuned this week, because there could be a lot of fireworks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's going to be very, very interesting. A lot more chaos. Trey Wallace, Outkick, and Fox, you're the best, Trey. Thank you so much for your time, man. Be well.
Guys, have a wonderful week. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You too, bud. Thanks,
Trey.
Trey Wallace joining us here, giving us his thoughts and insight into the Protect College Sports Act, mentioning that this might be it in terms of a bill, which will be very interesting, because I don't see it getting passed. And then, it says stay tuned. This 2022 ruling was going to create some crazy chaos here and a lot of unknowns. To be very, very interesting here on the front door of the 2026 college football season. All right, it's Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio. We've got the Valid or Void coming up, plus Gene Taylor, the Kansas State Athletic Director, joining us. On the way next, though, more on the Texas Tech scheduling nightmare and just how much of a villain is Texas Tech football. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Dampier, second down, loads of time. He'll pass the ball. He'll wing it near side. Intercepted by Wall. Slant, McAllister tip ball. Interception, BYU. And going back the other way. The cut inside. Now back to the outside. The shove. Hold on. Touchdown.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Thanks for checking us out, hanging out with us each and every morning from 7 to 10 a.m. Closing in on 2 years on TuneIn now with Big 12 Radio, and so glad you found us. You can download the TuneIn app and stream us live 7 to 10 a.m. Central each and every weekday morning. The show then replays from 10 to 1, and then you can catch the Big 12 Power Hours as a part of Big 12 Radio. So make sure to check out today's Power Hour interviews from Media Days, including Cincinnati offensive lineman Taron Tayo, Antoine Peak Jr., quarterback from Arizona Noah Fafita, Tay Brown from Arizona, Willie Fritz from Houston. Plus, you can also catch at 2 o'clock Central Kenny Dillingham, Scott Frost, Kalani Sataki, and then at 3 o'clock as part of our Power Hours, Joey McGuire, the Countdown to Kickoff, Kansas. So a lot of content getting you ready for the football season, whether it be interviews from Media Days or a Countdown to Kickoff series where both Taman and James talk to Kansas. Our Countdown to Kickoff today is West Virginia football, so stay tuned for that. Is Texas Tech the most hated team in college football right now?
Personally, I don't think they are, but I think they're the most hated team in the Big 12.
Who's the most hated team in college football?
Right now, I'm going to go with...
The answer doesn't come easy. It kind of feels like it should be Tech, no?
I mean, I think that's fair. I might be biased, but I think it's always going to depend. I think you can put Ohio State in there. I think you can always put the Notre Dames, the USCs, the Alabamas. I know they're like Alabama's not as good. Notre Dame, I think, is very much hated, and I think deservingly so. Joey McGuire called that out last year. If they want to be in the playoffs, get in the doggone conference.
Yeah. I mean, certainly those teams are hated. You know, winners are hated, and I think that's a big reason for why Texas Tech is hated because, one, not only are they winning, but they're also recruiting at a level that nobody expected them to, and I think that pisses off some, Texas and Texas A&M supporters, fans, and even the schools themselves. We talked about this earlier because Joey McGuire went to Brett McMurphy and basically said, hey, nobody's going to schedule us. We've had a bunch of Power 4 opponents in the non-conference in future years get out of games against us, home and home series. And now we're trying to fill those games because the Big 12 dictates that we have one Power 4 non-conference opponent. And we don't have one in 2026, and so far we don't have one in 2027 either. And I think that has really erupted the Texas Tech fan base to the point of where they all think, and I know that many that are watching us right now at Big 12 Studios on our YouTube channel agree that it's more so having to do with what happened this summer in Brennan Sorsby than anything else. Now, I reject that. I think it's part of it, but I think the bigger reason and rationale is the basic one, most obvious one, which is that all of these SEC and ACC teams are reducing future Power 4 opponents because they're not playing 9 conference games, which means they have one less game to play. If you're adding a game to your schedule from a conference standpoint, you then have to take away one of the games you had to still play 12. And so I think that's the byproduct of it. It's also convenient for these programs to play the moral high horse here, the moral authority, but I don't think it's the number one reason why.
Can I clarify
Sure.
my answer? I definitely think they're in the chat. I definitely think they're in the conversation for a lot of the things that you just noted. I think that, when I think of teams that are hated, I mentioned Notre Dame, I mentioned USC, I mentioned Ohio State, Texas is hated. I think Texas Tech, I think they're in that category for their recruiting. Cody Campbell, makes people not like Texas Tech, but I understand why he does it. He's in a position to do so. He can kind of talk the talk with his money. So, and our good friend Chris Lovell just texted us. Hate's a strong word.
Well, I'm not saying that I hate Tech.
No.
I love Tech, and I've said this before. Like, I love Joey McGuire.
Right.
I love Kirby Hocutt. I love Chris Level. I mean, they're Matt Dowdy is the PR director. Like, there's a lot of great people there, and they're great for the Big 12. The word, I think, a term that have been used is villain, and villains are across sports. I always talk about how people will thumb their noses at WWE wrestling, and it's like, well, it's fake, and yeah, I mean, it's scripted, but nothing within it is fake. And I think what's important is, like, the thing that guides WWE is there's heels and there's heroes. And even though sports isn't scripted, it feels like that also drives consumption in sports. The heels, the villains, the
Sure.
Alabamas when they're winning championships every year, the Ohio States when they're winning championships and talking smack and being annoying as they are, right? I mean, feeling entitled, right? So villains are really important in sports. They drive consumption. People will tune in to watch Texas Tech games more so than other random games because they want to watch them lose. That's the Alabama effect. When they were winning national championships, more people wanted to tune in to watch them lose than to watch them win. So in sports, you need villains, and I think Texas Tech, because of what happened this summer, is fulfilling that villain role. And I think Joey McGuire is happy to engage, happy to acquiesce.
100% agree. Villains are great for sports. And hate, it's not like personal hate. It's sports. It's fandom hate. And the fans, we mentioned this earlier, the Texas Tech fans feel like they have been, victims here. And I don't care, the theatrics on how they feel that way. The fact is they feel that way. I think that Texas Tech is going to embrace this villain role. Joey McGuire clearly wants it, which makes me think his locker room wants it. The fans want it, so why not? He doesn't have anything to lose. And then when you have schools who are backing out of playing Texas Tech, it's only going to add to the argument. Why don't you want to play them? What are you afraid of? What are you scared of? Oh, well, you need to come to our place. No, come to the Galaxy. That's the new name of it now. Come to the Galaxy. Why not? What are you afraid of?
Well, and as Chris Level told us, Joey McGuire didn't just go to Brett McMurphy, as I alluded to in the first segment. Chris Level just texted us and said, Brett McMurphy's in town to write some features because this is a team worth writing features on. And one of the features he released is Joey McGuire on Texas Tech's villain era. Quote, "We're the most hated team in college football," end quote. So don't just take my word for it. It's Joey's quote, too, in terms of being the most hated team. I think, like, you named the usual suspects there. I mean, I think a lot of people that aren't fans of Texas hate Texas. I think a lot of people that aren't fans of Alabama hate Alabama, right? Like, Texas Tech's in this sort of intermediate era where they're hated for multiple reasons. One, because they're sort of new money, nouveau riche, as a lot of people have alluded to. Mm-hmm. And so I think people just don't like that, right? You're ruffling the feathers of these old guard programs that have had the money and been around forever. And then I do think the Sorsby thing plays into this, that people view that Texas Tech didn't handle it the right way, and you could argue that in some ways they didn't.
No, I like the point that you made about the quote-unquote the new money, the new feel, because there have been some of these programs that have existed for a long time that have been hated for a long time because of their winning, because of their culture, because of their money. And now Texas Tech has entered that category, and they're like, oh, who are you? You haven't proven yourself. We've been here for a long time. Pinkies up, ... They're entitled. Texas Tech has entered that category. They have the money. They have the recruits. They have taken recruits that other schools have wanted. So, of course, there's a little saltiness there. And I'm not knocking Tech for doing that. But from a fandom standpoint, and I always like to think from the perspective of a fan, if a team is doing well, Texas Tech won the Big 12 last year. They had a very, I don't know the right word. They had an interesting summer, to say the least, right? You're going to rub people the wrong way, and that's just going to happen. But if I'm a fan of another school, I want to beat them. Why? I don't care about any of the other stuff. They won the Big 12. They're the favorite. Their fans have been able to talk the talk. I want my fans to do that, so now I don't like them.
Yeah. No, and McGuire's quote in this article that he makes the Caddyshack reference, he said, quote, "We're Rodney Dangerfield. We're walking into the country club, and we're, first of all, Red Raiders have fun. They're loud. They're going to have a great time. And we're walking into that country club like all of a sudden you've got a bunch of guys turning around looking and going, man, who the hell is this? And why are they here? Are they supposed to be in here?" End quote. I'd say that's a pretty good comparison there. They're Rodney Dangerfield's character in Caddyshack, sort of ruffling feathers, being new money, going to the country club despite nobody wanting you there.
I'm for it. I 100% agree.
Yeah, he even said, quote, "I think you have some of that because even though you look at the situation with Sorsby that went on with this last year, it felt like last year there were some people that were really waiting for us to lose so they could criticize the way we got the roster where it was. It was really interesting," end quote. Like, McGuire could feel that people were ready to jump on Texas Tech for the way that they built their roster by having a disappointing season, and the season was anything but disappointing up until, of course, the college football playoff game against Oregon.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, of course, the Sorsby situation added to the quote-unquote hate or the quote-unquote villain, whatever word you want to use. But quite frankly, people were mad at Tech before the Sorsby signing. People were mad at Tech before the CFP playoff game. I know Texas Tech not playing well didn't help their cause, but I have a feeling if Sorsby had never happened, and Will Hammond was their guy, 100%, take Sorsby out of it, they still would have been rubbing – they still would have made a lot of people mad. They would have been, ruffling those feathers because of the money that they're spending, because of the recruits that they were able to get, the transfer that they were able to get from somebody else, and they're the new guys at the country club that nobody likes. You haven't, quote-unquote, proven yourself yet. Yeah, we have. We signed those guys. You wanted them. What's the difference?
Yeah. I cannot wait to see this Paramount Plus docuseries, 4 episodes, The Program, which is going to be debuting. We talked about it when some of the news about it came out. It'll be really interesting to see how the Sorsby saga is handled. Again, like McGuire is one of the most genuine people you'll ever meet. He's a great coach, but it's just a combination of the Sorsby situation. I think the tortillas, just a combination, an accumulation of a bunch of things. The way that they're spending money has led Texas Tech to this point. And look, the secret here is that it's really good news for the Big 12. This is going to draw a lot of eyeballs. Again, like, hate is a stronger emotion than love. It will bring more people to the table to watch Texas Tech because people want to tune in to see Tech lose. It's the arrogance, it's the NIL spending, it's they want Texas Tech to be wrong. And then of course the Sorsby piece, which it's like, oh, look at how irresponsible you are, look at how morally reprehensible you are. We're better than you. We need to prove it on the football field. And Joey embracing that and embracing it with his team is really good news for this conference.
James and I spoke to Kirby Hocutt last week, the athletic director at Texas Tech, and he mentioned on the show that he believes that they could have handled the Sorsby situation a little bit differently. That was an important quote. Everybody's looking at Tech like there's these kind of like what you said, these arrogant guys, blah, blah, blah. They are only doing what makes them best for their college football program. I mean, their sports program in general, but specifically talking about their college football program. When you look back at the Sorsby situation, of course there are things that you could have done differently. It's a learning experience, and they wanted what was truly best for Brendan Sorsby and all of their student athletes, which Kirby Hocutt brought up. He said that multiple times. But from a fan perspective, from a college football perspective, when you're starting to do the things that Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State have done for years, but you're only getting mad at Texas Tech, that just seems like saltiness to me.
Yeah, well said. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. And, one of my favorite Dak Prescott quotes is pressure is privilege. So there's a lot of pressure on Texas Tech, and they feel it, but it's a good type of pressure because they know that pressure comes as a result of winning, of having success, and that is a privilege that they view. So I think it's a quote from Dak Prescott that's entirely applicable here.
I like that too. I 100% agree. That's a good quote. And pressure, I mean, hey, when you win, more pressure comes, and it's a privilege as well. So I totally 100% agree.
Yeah. All right, on the way next, a little valid or void. Has the NCAA finally fixed targeting? Will the class of 2022 ruling make the Big 12 better? All of that plus more in Valid or Void next. With Taman Turner, I am Ari Temkin. Will Connerly is producing. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Intercepted by Rodriguez. And then he hurls here as that one is taken away. It's Jacob Rodriguez. Here's Martin on 2nd and 3, but he is met and tackled for a loss. Jacob Rodriguez making his first big moment. Wigman to the air, and the pass is picked off by Rodriguez. And then he hurdles, but Cougar and is still going. And finally brought down inside the 25-yard line. A lot of yelling at the line. Finally the snap. Avery Johnson on a straight ball came out again. It's out again. Pollock has it. Chase Brown.
This is how you respond to Heisman hype. Rodriguez, touchdown.
Definitely need Sam Jackson. Hand off here as that one is taken away. Going the other way. Make it the 4th play of the game. That's a game changer. Taken to
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Time for a little Valid or Void. Along with David Turner, I'm Ari Tevkin. We're presented by Modelo. All right, so Will Connolly, who's producing today, came up with the topics for Valid or Void. He throws them at us, and we decide if they are valid or void.
We do exactly that. That's correct. So we're going to start with a rule in college football. I found this interesting. I know this came out a while ago, but since we're getting ready to be by televisions pretty much every single Saturday for the rest of the year and beyond, I know that this is going to change, a rule change that I think is pretty significant. So the NCAA is changing the punishment structure for targeting this season. The first offense, you get ejected from the game, but it no longer automatically will cost you the next game. Now, additional offenses, they'll be added on to that, so on and so forth, and your repeat offenses get harsher. But my statement to you guys, valid or void, that the NCAA has finally fixed targeting.
Yeah, I'd say this is valid. I think anything that's different from how it had been is fixing it, where you're, missing a half of the next game. It seems nonsensical. And we saw this in the last year of the college football playoff, where Xavier Lucas had to miss the first half because of a second half targeting call in the previous playoff game, which it's like, man, that is a huge penalty there because you're losing him for a second half of the previous game and then the first half of the next game. It's a lot. Also, apparently, the new structure also introduces an appeals process at the conference level for second offenses, which is that suspension. Also, the NCAA appears to be layering in helmet sensor data to reduce subjectivity in the review process. So, I think it's helping to fix the issue. I think it is evolving the penalty. I think there's clearly a need for this penalty in the modern game. But I think it's been a very, very it's been a rough penalty that probably the punishment doesn't fit the crime, and I think they're evolving it to a point where it fits a little bit better now. Is it perfect? No, but it's better than it had been.
So my answer to this is void, but I think it's valid on paper, but I think natural human ability voids it because humans, refs mess up. They do. They're going to get this call wrong at some point, and it's going to affect somebody's team. And even though there's an appeals process, it doesn't disqualify you for the next game. It might disqualify you for a half here and there, but I just feel like there's going to be a point in a game where they get something wrong, and they're going to stand by that, and somebody's going to be ticked off.
That's
valid on paper, void in practice.
I mean, officials do make mistakes all the time, but I just thought that consequence was just so large to go miss a whole nother half of a game and already sit out a game if you did it in the first half. It was interesting. Good takes. I want some valids. I want some voids. We'll move on. And this one got pretty real for the Big 12 almost immediately. So the class of 2022 eligibility ruling, it's allowed Arizona to get some dogs back for them. And I feel it makes roster management a complete mess, of course, like you guys noted. But it also means more experienced players are going to be in the league. So the class of 2022 ruling makes the Big 12 better, even if it makes college sports a little messier, valid or void.
I'm going to validate this. I know football season's right around the corner. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. But for basketball, I think this is really big for the Big 12. Ari brought it up. If Melvin Council's able to return back to Kansas, that's huge.
And he's not the only one.
Right. That's a huge, situation right there. So, if it makes it messier, they'll sort it out. I don't really care. I just want to watch good basketball. I want to watch good football. If it's all for it, College sports is already messy. What's a little messier?
Yeah, I'm going to validate this as well. I think this is entirely valid. I mean, as soon as this ruling came down, you had general managers across football scrambling to figure this thing out. And, it's interesting because the Big 12 is the worst conference in America of the Power Four in terms of homegrown talent. So this is a league that's bought, right? This is a transfer portal league. That's what we've seen. That's what the numbers validate over the last 4 years. This helps them because there's no portal. So from an experience standpoint, if you're Iowa State, if you're West Virginia, if you're UCF, if you're Cincinnati, this allows you to add experienced players that have been with your program before. That's only going to make you better and replace guys that are less experienced. And you're not competing in the open market with all these other teams in the portal like you would be normally. So, yeah, I think this absolutely benefits the Big 12. And that's to say nothing about other sports.
While not likely, I am an advocate for Taman Lipsey to return to Iowa State. I wonder why.
Why isn't it likely?
Well, we talked last week, and he's really bought into the Pacers. Hopefully, that's his goal. We talked to Alec Bussey last week, and he was explaining Taman Lipsey is eligible to come back, but he's really focused on trying to.
Well, and the reality with that, and I think there's going to be some football players that have to figure this out too, is it's like, do you pursue that dream?
Right.
I'm assuming Lipsey's going to start in the G League, right? So the 1-to-1, it does not make sense. But it's not a 1-to-1 comparison. Lipsey's not going to the G League over Iowa State in order to have a career in the G League. He's going to the G League over Iowa State in order to have a career in the NBA, and he feels like that's his best path at this point in time to do it. You've got football players in camps right now that are trying to make an NFL roster, that are probably not going to make an NFL roster. That best case scenario are on the practice squad with an opportunity to elevate, sort of like a G League situation over multiple years to get yourself in the league. But that's a harder decision, I think, for football players than it is for basketball players.
Sure.
And it's another eligibility exception. I know you both go on the valid point, but I guess the void argument would be it makes the system even more confusing. It really hurts young players, and it limits your ability to continue to home grow some guys if you want to start doing that, because if you get a fifth-year guy back, that not only costs your roster more money, but also it may hurt one of those recruits who thought he was going to start. Okay, we're moving on Texas Tech. We just talked about it, so we'll hit this one quick, but we're going to Lubbock, Texas again. Texas Tech should fully embrace this villain role in college football. Valid or void?
Valid, 100%. I think they should totally embrace it. It's fun being the villain, and if you back it up, or if you do your talking on the football field and you win these games, you win the Big 12, you go into CFP and you win there, compete for a national championship, you get to talk all you want for the rest of your time, for the rest of your being. Totally embrace it. Go for it.
Okay, so what does embrace it mean? Should they do villainous things now to really embrace it? Like, what is
calling yourself a villain? I feel like they're embracing it, right? And that's where I kind of my thought was, because like calling yourself a villain is one thing, but if other people see you as a villain, that's different.
Now, do you play a different style? Or are there ways in which you're embracing it further?
No, it's really
just embrace. An aura, okay, because embrace could be all encompassing, right?
Right.
It could go deep, and it's like, I don't know if you want to go that deep.
We could.
It's interesting because the Big 12 does not want Texas Tech to be talked about and viewed as a villain, as a hated team. I wonder why. Brett Yormark is no stranger to what drives consumption. Why would he not?
Football
play.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I like that Taman Turner reaction, because you're like, Ari makes a phenomenal point, right? Which he does all the time. You're like, oh. No, it's
Will, ultimate hype man.
He's the ultimate hype man, but at the same time, he's also things that it's like, okay, he's laying it on so thick that like I don't always make that many good points. So what is he being sarcastic?
Well, you were a little surprised. You're like, that actually is a good point, But
it's interesting to me that the Big 12 does not, as a brand, does not want Texas Tech to be talked about and viewed that way. That's interesting, right? You'd think they would embrace it too, as much as Texas Tech does, because they know it drives consumption. So I think that's interesting. Why would they not want it that way? There's got to be a method behind the madness, because Brett Yormark is the ultimate, circus barker, if you will. And that's not to knock Yormark. I mean, he likes to leverage the best marketing opportunities for the Big 12, and he's good at identifying those, so why not this one? There's got to be a reason for it.
Absolutely.
100% agree.
And we had Doug McNamee on last week, and he talked about that. The most important thing is our viewership numbers. We want to drive that because that's good for the conference. All right, let's move on. It's camp time. There's battles, and we hear coaches all the time. You know we're going to hear this with Bill Belichick in North Carolina with TCU. We'll name the starter when we're ready to name the starter. Obviously, there's multiple teams in the Big 12 that have quarterback battles going on. One team that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So valid or void that coaches gain nothing from naming a Week 1 starting quarterback early. Valid or void?
I'm going to void this. I think it's circumstantial. I think there's like certain situations to where you want to get the guy that you think is going to be your starter the most reps in practice, especially in a new offense. West Virginia's an interesting story here from a context standpoint. Scotty Fox knows the offense. He was with West Virginia last year. Michael Hawkins is learning it. So this makes sense to me. And also Rich Rod historically has done this a lot, even last year where it's like I'm carrying this quarterback competition all the way up until kickoff. And I'm sure Rich Rod knows who his starter is going to be. I'm assuming it's Michael Hawkins too, but he's not going to tell you. So I think the reason that I would say void on gain nothing is because I think in certain situations you can gain something. In other situations, I think it's fine to not do it and play out with a quarterback competition throughout camp. It's completely contextual. It's completely circumstantial.
Yeah, I'm going to void this as well because for a lot of things I already said, but I look at Kansas, right? You have Cole Ballard and Isaiah Marshall. What are you really going to gain from naming one? Both of them are really good. Lance Leipold has talked about the positives that each has. And when we spoke last week to Michael Swain, he kind of repeated your point, Ari. Cole Ballard will probably be the starter, but will he be the starter all season? I don't know. Isaiah Marshall might play it sometime. So I don't know if there's, anything to gain so much. I just think that, it's circumstantial. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. It just depends on the situation.
And so many quarterbacks get hurt now, so the valid argument would be, why don't you keep both guys engaged? Because you're probably going to need to use multiple quarterbacks at a lot of different times. Why give the opponent information? I mean, there are some locks, of course, at QB1 where it's not a battle, but good takes there. Okay.
Yeah, well, and real quickly on that, I think, in football, and I've found this out in covering football as long as I have, like we put so much stock into who makes the roster, like in the NFL, who's on the 53, who doesn't make it, who's starting. By the time you get to like midway through the season, you've forgotten all those conversations. Guys have gotten hurt, they moved up like how you start the season and how you end the season roster and position-wise is so different. Teams grow and ebb and flow and evolve. Kansas and West Virginia, I guarantee you will use at least two quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I know this wasn't the situation. Look at Bear Bachmeier last year, right? I know there wasn't like a battle, but like who would have thought he would have emerged the way that he did as a true freshman?
True.
I mean, situations can change and they can change quickly.
Absolutely. Okay. Last one, and this one certainly has already been discussed a little bit by us, but we know the league plays 9 conference games, 16 teams. You got a schedule that's imbalanced. Some programs, like Texas Tech, have trouble finding attractive non-conference opponents, so there's an argument for potentially adding another league game. Valid or void, a 10-game Big 12 conference schedule would be good for the league.
I'm going to stick with what I said earlier. I'll let my yes mean yes, and I'm going to say I'm going to validate this because even though like there could be some potential downfall for this, I like competitive football. If this means more competitive football in the Big 12, I'm all for it. I validate it. And yes, competitive.
Competitive, yeah.
I said that.
Man, this is a toughie because going off of the historical context of the College Football Playoff Committee, it feels like it's a bad move because it's too much of a risk with not enough of a reward. With that being said, though, I'm going to validate this because I'm like you. Like, if you're going to give me more quality football games, I'm going to say yes. I'm not jacked up for Kansas State, Nicholls State, And I do ultimately think as the growth of the Big 12, as the Big 12 continues to grow, I do want to believe that adding a 10th conference game and being the only conference that has 10 games is beneficial to the conference in terms of CFP bids. So I'm going to validate this and say ultimately, despite it not seeming to matter right now based on the current climate, ultimately it would matter.
Great job, both of you.
That's it? That's all you got?
That's for valid or void.
Love it.
That is.
You have any, see, Will's been giving us his hard opinions on these topics after the show or after each segment. So, like, you got any here?
Well, for this last one, it is interesting because if you go to 10 games, are we getting Baylor Auburn? Are we getting BYU Notre Dame? Are we getting some of these great non-conference games?
Well, we're not getting them.
That's the
if
problem.
we go to 10 games.
No, we're not getting them at 9 games, it seems.
You have them on the schedule this year.
True.
But
those are thinning out.
Those
over
are
time.
thinning out because of what you brought up earlier with TV partners. It's a really hard thing, but it's all hypothetical. But I do think about other conferences, and if you expand, I brought it up, I think, in a break about, hey, the ACC, they have to play, some teams play 8, some teams have to play 7, and it's all imbalanced. So it's going to always be imbalanced when you have 16 teams. You can't play everybody. You can't do a 15-team thing. And so I think when you're trying to find the conference champion, that always can be a difficult thing, but I think those things ultimately play out. So
it's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. All right, let's ask Gene Taylor about a 10-game football schedule. That's next. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Gene Taylor joins us, the K-State Athletic Director. We're presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Down and 7, middle run. That had the look of a 4-down play sequence. We'll see if they are going for 4 down below the 35 of Baylor. Baylor's defense has been able to do.
Love it. Blitz coming. It could have been worse. Jackie Marshall finally will get credit for the sack.
Jackie Marshall, just watch him, not truly rushing, right? Kind of just waiting to see what he does. He corrals him, grabs that right leg, and puts him to the ground.
Little play action. Hoover eyes downfield. The dump at the last moment to Rodgers.
He's got himself a ball game. Even if he plays going that 3rd down, really does a nice job.
away on Friday at 10 a.m. So stay tuned for that. The champ game is a Friday night this year, as a reminder. At 7 p.m. on ABC. General public seating starts at $109 and is $75 for students. General admission tickets go on sale this Friday. And perhaps a team that could be playing at Arlington for a Big 12 championship, Kansas State Wildcats, led by Colin Klein, and their athletic director, Gene Taylor, is joining us here on Big 12 Radio. Gene, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. You know, it's interesting. We were just sort of catching up during the break and talking about the 4 new coaches in the Big 12, and it's maybe a surprise for a lot of these coaches. I think, you know, a year ago, if you were to say that, hey, at Utah and at Kansas State, they're going to have new head coaches, you may have thought things had gone horribly awry. And they haven't, right? I mean, just circumstantial for you to be able to bring back, you know, with Klein being such a good coach, winning a Big 12 championship at K-State, but really an opportunity with Klein and how his ascension and his history at K-State, it just made too much sense.
Yeah, if I'd messed that one up, they'd have probably run me out of Manhattan. But yeah, no, obviously, you know, Coach Kleinman did a heck of a job replacing, you know, somebody like Bill Snyder and coming in here and winning a Big 12 championship, and you know, caught us a little surprise. There's no question about it when he announced his retirement. But the timing was perfect. You know, Colin left here wanting to someday be able to come back. I don't think we all knew it was going to be as quickly as it did. Obviously, he was at Texas A&M as a coordinator, offensive coordinator for 2 years, but worked out really well. He's been awesome since he's been here. You know, I find it interesting sometimes. I'll introduce him at certain events, and people look at me like, Gene, I've known Colin since he was a freshman in college, you know. So, but no, he's done a great job adjusting to the role, and you know, things will continue to change throughout the fall. But we're really excited to have him and his staff. He's done a really good job putting his staff together.
Gene, in what ways does Colin Klein remind you of Bill Snyder?
You know, I see glimpses of it. You know, at practice when he finishes practice, some of the details that he focuses on. You know, outside. You know, obviously the summer. You know, you get here, he's into recruiting and he's busy. Then, you know, but just his amount of detail and literally wanting to be involved with as much as he can with this program. I wouldn't call him a micromanager, and I'm not saying that Coach Snyder was, but Coach Snyder knew everything was going on in his program, and he had certain things he wanted done a certain way. And you know, Colin's adjusting to the new world of college athletics and football in particular. But there's still a lot of Coach Snyder isms in some cases, and just how he approaches his practices, how he approaches his preparation, some of the things, how he wants it to be run. In terms of a program. So yeah, there's glimpses, and then there's things that he says post practice that I'm like, oh, I've heard something like that before. So
Gene, are you have you brushed up on your law recently?
like law, like legal stuff, or what?
Yeah, I mean, feels like to even talk about this stuff, you've got to have a legal degree right now. But
yeah, it's funny. I feel like I know way more about politics and law and courts and systems and how it all works more than I ever thought I would at this point in my career, particularly.
Yeah, that makes two of us. What are your thoughts? Let's start with the news from last night on this 2022 eligibility ruling from Colorado. Kind of what do you know about it? How are you positioning your athletic department for this? You know, what are the implications of it? What has your legal team told you in reference to it?
Yeah, you know, we work obviously with our compliance folks, and we've got an in-house attorney that helps us, you know, just understand the processes. So we've talked to our coaches. We've given them a list of potential athletes that either played here or in the portal that they could talk to. But we've also told them to go very cautiously, because we obviously expect that the NCAA will appeal it. And keep moving it through the appellate process. But you know, we have to be prepared that if it stands, that we got to be able to adjust to it and give our coaches the opportunity. But you know, it's just funny. Every day I seem like get on the various news outlets, and there's another either lawsuit or another legal thing that, you know, could affect how we operate. Our staff have to be nimble. That they can't lock their knees on any particular issue, because it could change each day. There's no question.
Gene, can you give us Kansas State's stance on the Big 12 and the Monster Energy deal?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Obviously, we're always moving forward with it. We've got the logos coming down the field. Initially we had a lot of questions. Some of us are schools that don't necessarily, we're Pepsi schools and Monster's a different brand, but I think it's going to be good. I think it's unique. It has not affected as much as I thought initially that having a Monster brand next to the Big 12 was going to maybe take away from our ability to go out and sell a jersey patch, which it hasn't. We've had a lot of interest in that. And the money's going to be helpful. It's we'd always like it to be more, but I would say this: I think Monster's excitement about being a part of the Big 12 could lead to bigger opportunities down the road. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's so far it's been a benefit, and it's been a mostly easy transition once we got the deal signed through the Big 12. They've been very responsive to the schools, from what I understand. They've been working very diligently to get the logos in and in place, and the schools are moving through. So, I think it's an opportunity that could continue to grow, and we'll see where it goes. But we're excited about it.
What do you make of some of the other benefits of it? We saw in a NASCAR Cup Series race this past weekend in Iowa that the Big 12's logo is featured prominently on the Monster number 35 car. We know about the international marketing opportunities. Like, what, in your mind, is this beneficial beyond just the revenue stream that it provides for the logo placement?
Well, that was it. Yeah, good question. And I obviously, I was at the Big 12 Media Days and actually talked to some of the Monster folks that were there. And, one of the things we talked about was what other opportunities are we not even aware of yet that could really benefit the Big 12. And the NASCAR thing was one that hadn't even crossed my mind. But again, that's another opportunity to expose the Big 12 to an audience that may not know about the Big 12. It's a unique opportunity, and so I think what's exciting about the Monster folks is they want to get creative. They want to find different ways. They really want to help push the Big 12, help push their brand. And I think as we go through the agreement over the next few months, particularly during the football season, we could find even more opportunities that could even strengthen the relationship even more so, and potentially open up the door for additional revenue. But I think it's just so new. We're trying to figure all that out. But I think the NASCAR thing's a great example of an idea that they said, hey, let's just give it a try. And because they're so unique, because they just typically have not done traditional sports. And I think that brings a potential new opportunities that we're not even aware of at this point.
Gene, I want to get political with you again. The Protect College Sports Act, it stalled in the Senate over the weekend. What are your thoughts on the Protect College Sports Act, and do you think it'll get passed at some point?
Yeah, I really do, and I only say that because I've talked to our senators here in Kansas that have been very involved, particularly Senator Jerry Moran, and talked to staffers, and they understand the importance of it. Obviously, it got political towards the end with some of the things that happened on the Senate floor, and they're obviously dealing with other things other than just the Protect College Sports Act. I do like the act. I do think there's a lot of good things in it. I have not read the entire act. A couple of our colleagues in the Big 12 have, and I think it's 170 some pages long, so I haven't quite delved through it. But I think there's a lot of good stuff in it. My hope is when they come back in September, it'll get on the docket early. There's certainly some challenges to it with other members of both the Senate and the House, but I just know there's enough conversation and enough of the schools and the conference that we hope we can just continue to push our senators to get it out of the Senate, and then it's got to go to the House and probably have some changes there. But I like what's in there. I think it's needed. I think we do need to get it passed, and I certainly I'm hopeful that it gets passed in September.
Curious, have you had issues scheduling P4 opponents in the future? Have you guys had games canceled? What does this look like for future scheduling? Because the SEC and the ACC are going to 9 conference games, and is there a situation where the Big 12 can't schedule Power 4 opponents in the non-conference to add a 10th Big 12 football game?
No, we haven't. I mean, we just, I think we've gotten a couple out years handled already. We haven't announced the games yet, but there's a couple. We haven't had any canceled. We didn't have any Big Ten or SEC opponents on our schedule over the next few years. Obviously, we've got Washington State this year. I think we've got Oregon State down the road. We scheduled those when they're in the Pac-12. That's one of the things we have to talk about as the Big 12, depending on where the college playoff goes. If it goes to 20 or 24, or if it stays at 12, whatever the number it ultimately comes out to. I think that's a conversation because right now, as you know, we play the 9 Big 12 opponents, and then one of our league policies is we have to play a 10th P4 opponent. So, that could be a factor in our abilities to make the playoffs. And so I think those are conversations we're still talking about from a scheduling perspective as a conference. But right now, we have not had a lot of difficulty finding a P4 opponent. Matter of fact, we've been in conversations with a Big Ten school potentially, but again, we haven't finalized any of those deals. But we'll see where it goes. But I think the people are going to have a harder and harder time are probably some of the FCS and FBS programs, in my opinion. But we'll see.
Great stuff. Great insight, great perspective there. How's your summer been? Have you had a chance to get away, go somewhere?
Yeah, it's gone fast. They typically do. I don't know what happens. It seems like graduation comes in middle of May, and next thing we know, it's football season. I got a little bit of away around the 4th of July. Typically, I take about 2 weeks around the 4th, and we got about a big weekend. And then my daughter lives here in Manhattan. She works for us at K-State, and she and her husband were moving from in town to the place out of town. So I spent the second week moving her and her husband with the other folks. So my second week off was in town moving my daughter. But it's been good. I play a little golf, not a ton, not as much as I like. Particularly, sometimes I kick myself for not getting out more. But it's just been good. There's just been a lot going on. Obviously Colin's new, and so the month of June he had a full slate of weekends with official visits, and wanted me to be involved in some of those. So, but it's been good, and next thing we know, we're going to be kicking off a football game. I guess the good news is we're not in Ireland this year.
Yeah.
So we've got an extra week of preparation.
Yeah, well said. I'm sorry to hear your daughter moved away, though. Do you have any grandkids?
No, yeah. Well, actually, she's just outside of town, just about 20 minutes.
Got
so
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we
not
have
too
one.
far.
We have one grandson, brand new. His name's Weston. He's about 8 months, almost 9 months now. So
Wow.
we get to see him quite a bit, and that's been fun too. He's been around quite a bit, and we get a lot of time with him. So it's nice.
That's awesome. Well, congrats. Maybe someday Weston will be on the football team.
Let's hope so. Let's hope he, is good enough an athlete, but he probably won't get that from his grandfather on this side. It may have to come from his grandmother on this side or the other side of the family. I don't know. We'll see.
Gene Taylor, athletic director at K-State. Thank you so much for your time. As always, appreciate you very much. Take care.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Hopefully we'll see you again throughout the year, and it should be a fun season, no question.
Yeah, cannot wait for it. No
Thanks,
doubt about
Gene.
it. Happy to get away from lawsuits and into talking football. Gene Taylor, the K-State athletic director, joining us here on Big 12 Today. Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Our countdown to kickoff continues next with West Virginia. We're telling you what we know, what we don't know, camp battles to watch, injury news, depth chart, and all the latest on West Virginia football as our countdown to kickoff series continues next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Cash it in. Instead of tackling for loss as Jamori Robinson flashes. You see right there that burst from the former American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year.
The last break. Well done by you. But it really is an alignment process, and it's not even a fake punt ball.
Second down, it is Whitman on a play fake. And pressure's coming. He got away from the first, but not the second. McIntyre to bring up third down. Explosive runs. Their quarterback involved. Sims appeared to pounce on it as he coughed it up at the mesh point.
Brett Perry, number 5 for West Virginia, up in the box. L.J. Martin, kickballs for straight. Corey Robinson brings him down. Robinson was the defensive player of the year for the American Conference last year for UTSA.
Today with Ari and James, Monday through Friday.
He's doing the Black Power sign.
Eastern Time.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Taman Turner in today for James. James is back tomorrow. Get the full band back together tomorrow. Will Connolly doing a fantastic job of keeping us on the tracks here, producing the show. We are presented by Modelo. All right. Countdown to kickoff. if you've been following us throughout this offseason, remember there is no off in offseason. There is only research presented by Modelo, and full-time fans know that, and full-time fans drink Modelo. So we've done like top 5 newcomers at every position, the top 5 players at every position. We've done the road to Arlington. I mean, we've just done it all, basically from March to now. So the latest is the countdown to kickoff. It's kind of our final installment series before the season begins. So we're doing our final kind of deep dive into every program, answering the most important questions. So what do you have for us, Will?
Well, we're talking about West Virginia today.
Yes.
And I have a ton of things for you guys.
All right, so go ahead.
So we're going to start with what do we know about West Virginia? That's the first topic here. The countdown to kickoff. Everybody familiar. Taman Turner, of course, the producer of this program. But what do we know about West Virginia? That's up first.
Yeah, so I think going off of some of their initial reporting from fall camp, and Dominion Post wrote about this, but basically, like, Rodriguez was complaining initially through the first 20 periods that the session, quote-unquote, fell short of what he wanted. The mental errors he expected, new players, new scheme. It's the conditioning and lack of urgency he did not. Rodriguez's own framing to the Herald Dispatch, quote, decent shape, not good enough to get through 20 periods without somebody loafing, and there'd be an unpleasant film to watch. So far, Rich Rod not exactly happy with what he's been seeing. Maybe that's right on schedule. What else do we know? We know that Cam Cook is going to be the leader of this offense. We know the offensive line should be dramatically improved. So this team should be really good at running the football. They've got the leading rusher in college football on their team with his O-line coach coming with him, Rick Trickett, a guy that's long been associated with Rich Rod, plus other offensive linemen from Jack State as well. So there's a lot of familiarity there.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this out here for you, Ari. So West Virginia last year, they went 4-8, 4-1 when coming up with more than 350 yards of total offense. That means they lost 7 games without it. But when they were above 350 yards or above in total offense, they went 4-1. So to your point, Cam Cook, run that ball, take that rock and run it, which he's very, very good at. They improved their offensive line. That's going to be better. They're moving Nick Craig from left tackle over to guard. That's going to be important for them. I mean, if West Virginia's offense can cook, ran by Cam Cook, they're going to be a problem.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the 350-yard thing is, I mean, of course, right? Like, they bullied on offense easy teams that they could bully. The problem was most of their Big 12 opponents they couldn't bully, and so they struggled offensively in those games. I think the other thing we know about this West Virginia team is even though there's still a lot of turnover from year 1 to year 2, there's a lot more consistency and continuity. 90% of the team was present for spring ball with a handful of summer additions, and that carry over from spring through summer is obviously extremely important. Last year, they had about 56% of the roster participating in spring. This year, 90%. So even though from a continuity standpoint, it looks like they've got, from a numbers perspective, not a ton of continuity, they've got way more continuity and buy-in than they had last year at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's an overhaul. I mean, but this is not new for Rich Rod. I mean, when he was here 20-plus years ago, he had a down year and then came back and kind of revamped for a second year. It's kind of the same. I'm seeing a pattern here with Rich Rod. So I feel like that'll happen this year. Last year was kind of a start, and then this year he's kind of retooled his starters through the portal, and you have a more talented team going into this season.
Yeah, we also know the schedule is front-loaded. 7 home games, Coastal Carolina to open, 1 true road game before October. The win total's at 5.5, with TCU at Texas Tech at Utah across the final 5 weeks. So for this team to hit the over, get to a bowl game, they've got to win and do most of their damage early on in the season.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I know this isn't solved yet, but we have an idea. What do we need to see from the quarterback play? That's huge.
Well, I would say that's part of what we don't know.
Right.
Which is the next category here, what we don't know, the quarterback officially. Rich Rod has not named a starter. I think most of the reporting on this indicates they think Michael Hawkins will start. But I think there's also an expectation that at some point we're going to see both quarterbacks, especially early on in the season as they figure this thing out. So what we don't know what the quarterback situation will look like. We don't know how good the quarterback is going to be. We know the running game will be good. We know their offensive line is improved. We know that Cam Cook is going to be a bell cow, and the running game will be improved. We don't know about the quarterback situation, though.
Yeah, the quarterback situation is still TBD, but like you said, the reports are showing that it's going to be Michael Hawkins. And can he complement this offense? That's going to be something. But let's actually hear from Rich Rod, Cut 10, on the strength of Michael Hawkins in the competition at offensive line.
I tell you what he is. He's really decisive. That's what you want your quarterbacks to be. A lot of times when the quarterbacks, especially younger quarterbacks, they hold on the ball too much or they hesitate a little bit. And even in the spring, as he was learning, he was really decisive. So I think he's got a great ceiling. He had a really good spring. I feel comfortable with him. I feel comfortable with Scotty, and we got some good young quarterbacks as well. So, I like where we're at. But I think the best friend for our quarterback is we're going to have a better running game. Yeah. And so we have the whole running back room is new, but we bought the leading rusher back in the country in Cam Cook, who's played in our league before.
Right.
And been really productive. And then I think we have 8 offensive linemen that were starters in college. And so our competition up front is going to be really good.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's easy to believe the offensive line will be dramatically improved. It was really bad last year, but I think one question remains on that offensive line as we talk about what we don't know, and that is left tackle. You've got Kevin Brown, the true freshman, 6'6", 294 pounds, a guy whose dad played for Rich Rod. He's taking the majority of snaps at left tackle, according to the West Virginia Metro News. He's got a chance to start as a true freshman right away, but they also have the experienced player in Cassidy, who I think they probably want to take that job. But if Kevin Brown beats him out, then he's going to be the starter at left tackle. So what we don't know is who starts at left tackle. We also don't know what's going on along the defensive front. There's a lot we don't know. We don't know what's going on along the defensive front. This is where they have to be best. But, I mean, they've got a bunch of guys and guys coming off of injuries. Nobody's really solidified themselves in terms of being the anchor of that D-line. So I think, your offensive line is going to be improved, and we know that it's going to be good. Left tackle is a major question mark in terms of who starts there, and I think your defensive front is a major question mark here.
Yeah, who's going to start at left tackle? Will it be Carson Cassidy? Nick Cray's moving over to guard. You have veteran center Landon Livingston. Will that line be stronger? It has to be. Will it be? We don't know, but we know it should be.
So what we know, what we don't know, you guys talked a little bit about this, but the quarterback position, do you guys believe that's truly a battle?
Yes. Yeah,
I'm going to go with that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, Rich Rod historically has done this, had battles, held them all the way up until the start of the season. My guess is Michael Hawkins starts. But Rich Rod wants Scotty Fox to push Hawkins, and Scotty Fox had some good moments last year. So I believe that is a legitimate competition.
Ari said earlier that Michael Hawkins is still learning the offense while Scotty Fox knows it. I think that's a battle right there in and of itself. When you describe it that way, that truly shows that there is a battle.
Yep.
And it is funny because we start with what we know. We know there's 80 new players, right? So it means there's a lot that we don't know with the newness. I want to turn your attention, though, Ari and Taman, to cut number 7 because you brought this up earlier on the program, and it plays.
Well, you have to start that from day one. And to me, it's not a sometime thing, it's an all-time thing. And if you let one thing go, like say one guy loafs one time, and you don't correct it, then you won't have the discipline that you have to have. And like I said, discipline's greater than motivation. Motivation is good because that'll get you started, but discipline will carry you through.
Yeah, it's fleeting. Motivation's fleeting.
Yeah, and I think your discipline is harder now than it's ever been because, the circumstances around, but it's still there. I still think good players want to be coached, and good players want to be in a structure where everybody has to be adhere to the same kind of rules.
All right, there's Rich Rod. All right, so what has to happen for West Virginia to contend? I think there's a number of things here, and I don't expect them to contend. I think, first of all, you got to go 3-0 in September. Coastal Carolina, UT Martin, Virginia, and Charlotte. We talked about this in the road to Arlington with West Virginia. That's their swing stretch, the front end of the schedule. So a 3-0 start means one more win from 8 tries to get a bowl. A 2-1 start means 5 from 9, a small number, enormous difference. So I think they got to go 3-0 to start non-conference play in order to have a shot. They've got to beat Oklahoma State at home on September 26th. West Virginia plays exactly one true road game in the first half of the season at Iowa State. 4 wins by the end of September is not a fantasy scenario. It's an actual scenario that the West Virginia schedule is built for, and that keeps them on schedule. If they're 3-1 or 2-2 exiting September with the road slate ahead and Utah and Tech and TCU, then they're not going to be a bowl team, and clearly won't contend. I think you also have to have Cam Cook at about 300-plus carries. I think if that's the case, then it'll show that he's really good. He's at the same level he was last year. Maybe not the numbers the same, but I think 300-plus carries would be an indication of things are working. He's healthy. The offensive line is playing well. I think that's a huge tell in terms of how good West Virginia can be. And then, I think you have to mention the defense. Can they be contenders? It's about their defense. It's been brutal last couple of years, especially their pass defense. If they've shored that up a little bit, if they just are average on defense, I think because of the change on offense, this is at least a bowl team.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their schedule, I mean, they got to succeed at the beginning of their schedule because at the end of their schedule, they play at the beginning October 24th. They play at TCU, at Texas Tech. They're at home against Kansas. Then they play Houston at Utah. That's brutal. That's going to be tough. You mentioned the defense, Ari. Their defense, their pass rush was okay last season. It was among the best in the Big 12 in tackles for loss. But like I said, they haven't historically. Last year, they didn't have a good defense. They have to play better. Their offensive line has to be sharpened. They bought in guys to fix that offensive line. Cam Cook's running behind it. And Michael Hawkins or Scotty Fox, whoever the starter is, has to play lights out. Their offense, like I said, I know it's a stat, but 350 yards of total offense. They won a lot of games last year. If they can sharpen that and get more and pound that rock, as we said with Cam Cook, then they can make a bowl game.
Yeah. The urgency angle, what matters most right now, I think, is Zach Alley and that West Virginia defense. Because, again, it just wasn't good enough to help West Virginia win football games last year. And a combination of the defense being as bad as it was and the offense and offensive line not being able to push people around, that's how you get to 3-8. So, going back to, we know that the offensive line is improved. We know that Cam Cook is going to be an improvement in the running game. We still have questions about quarterback and who it is, but for me, the biggest question mark in terms of can this team get to 6 wins, be better than it was last year, it's all about defense.
Yeah.
All about defense.
No, 100%. Zeke Campbell, he had 5.5 sacks last season. Harper Hallman this year will be more in a hybrid role. West Virginia has to attack. I mean, like I said, their pass rush wasn't bad last year, but defensively, they have to expand on that. They have to be better. Not saying they were bad last year, but better equals better.
Yep.
And Taman, you brought up the back half of the schedule. You were talking about the schedule early on. My thought would be if West Virginia can really be a sleeper, wouldn't you think they would need to start 4-1 through those first 5?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, and really, quite frankly, to even give themselves a good chance at a bowl. I mean, to be able to go into October needing only 2 wins to get to a bowl game, considering how difficult October and November are in that schedule, I think that's a good spot. I think they're a sleeper for a bowl. I think they're not a sleeper for Arlington. I think they're a year away from that. We've talked a lot about this throughout the offseason with West Virginia in terms of finding guys in the portal with multiple years of eligibility left. They have a really good recruiting class. They're in it for the long haul. This year is to establish that. Next year is about taking it to the next step. The difference is, do you have the coffers? Do you have the revenue? Do you have the money in order to keep these guys around for multiple years? Because that's what it's going to take, because under Neil Brown, they've lost a lot of talented players because they just didn't have the NIL to compete. Well, so then your approach, if you're Rich Rod, of going after multiple-year players with eligibility is moot. If you can't keep them, it doesn't matter. Having multiple-year guys doesn't matter if they're only there for 1 year, and then they leverage their success the 1 year into going somewhere else. So I think they're a sleeper for a bowl. I think there's a legitimate path to get them there, and I'm optimistic about it. But I think this is more of a 2027 play in terms of Arlington.
I 100% agree. I mean, look, we had West Virginia ranked 11th on our preseason consensus poll for a lot of the reasons that we just discussed. I mean, do I think that they can make a bowl game, especially if they start the beginning of their schedule strong? Absolutely. But are they a playoff team? Not yet. Are they close to being a playoff team? I wouldn't say yet. But next year, I think, is a more realistic goal for that.
Yeah. Real quickly on the injury front, Prince Strawn, who is a 6'5" ex-receiver, he's banged up. It's sort of unclear what his status is going to be, but this is a big deal because I think they figured with Bray and Strawn and then what they had in the slot, like they had a really good threesome of receivers. I mean, Strawn is a guy who went to USC last year, played under Lincoln Riley, didn't have a lot of production, but is a guy with a ton of potential. So I think that's something to note. All right, let's go dig deeper on the countdown to kickoff for West Virginia with Mike Casaza, Ear Sports. That's next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Blitz coming, jailbreak, and they run the perfect play. It's small. He's big. He's down inside the 5 to the 1. BJ Payne tripped him up to save the touchdown. What an effort here.
And there it is. They fake the handoff and to the backside. And another tackle for loss at the 20, this time by BJ Payne. They tried to get the man on the edge on the far side, and VJ was having none of it.
It's always about how you finish. Kobe Williams hit by Payne. Second down.
And he'll make you pay. Handoff. Parker gets stuffed, stays on his feet, and now he's going to go down.
Well, play the drop. Hands off to Highshaw. Steps to an ankle tackle and rumbles below the 30. BJ Payne finally got him to the turf.
Kansas State going to try and put some pressure on it. Floor steps up, floats one toward the end zone. Does not have a receiver there. And that's an interception to end the half. BJ Payne with his first interception of the year.
Fourth downs this year. A big one in this second half. Brown stopped originally, and the ball comes out. Is the play dead, though? The whistles came after the ball came out.
This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, and this is our countdown to kickoff, talking to West Virginia football. And no better person to talk about West Virginia football than Mike Casazza from Ear Sports. Mike, how are you?
Doing great. I unplugged my microphone, so we're off to a good start, but I'll be okay.
You sound great. I want to first start with a quote that I heard from Rich Rod last week, basically saying, like, yeah, they're loafing a bit through these 20 sessions. He hasn't liked what he's seen from them entirely. Like, can you add some context from your understanding of that sentiment from Rich Rod to start camp?
It's funny. I don't know that he'll ever be happy.
Right.
Like, in a practice sense, because you can't win or lose, for that matter, too. So that stuff doesn't surprise me. I think he's always going to be a bit of a taskmaster and push and try to get this and that. And, if he's, I think, jokingly, giving a guy grief for having an ingrown toenail and not being able to practice, that stuff you can get away with early, but he'd much rather see on the field. And just from, we haven't seen a second of practice, but, they're you can look at a calendar and see how long they're on the field. It's not like the old days you're going 3 hours. And he even said the other day, if you're doing 2 hours, it's way too much. So I think this is a guy who wants to be efficient and not repeating stuff after 4 and 5 days that you were doing wrong in the first or second day. So set that tone early. I think a lot of work to do and a lot of ground to make up. Makes a lot of sense. I do sense that, but I also sense that he's kind of like always the same a little bit, even 20 years ago, that never quite good enough, and the practice is just like, well, you really have a win or a loss in your hands, you can do a lot more with it.
Mike, Rich Rodriguez has not named the starting quarterback yet between Michael Hawkins and Scotty Fox. A lot of reports show that it will be Michael Hawkins. Is this a legitimate quarterback? Is it a debate, a controversy, or is who's going to be the starter?
No, I think it's legitimate. I don't know why they wouldn't come out and say it if they had it, which just makes me think they don't, because they can't lose. They either retained a quarterback who started 6 games and set some freshman passing records last year, tried to bring in someone to compete with him but couldn't do it, so they kept the right guy and he's their starter, or they went out and signed a player from Oklahoma who was a 4-star not too long ago and just fits the visage of this offense, and he's the guy who won the competition. That sounds great too. Either way, you can't lose. You either kept the right guy or you signed the right guy. So it's not a bad decision, especially in the preseason. Everybody gets excited and you feel a lot better about the overall project, not just the most important position. So if you're not sure about this, and that's your big acquisition or your big project, well, how can you be certain about anything else right now? So I think if they hadn't answered, they would probably let you know. But also, like, they're just finishing their first week here. So it's probably more of a competition than you think, because they just haven't played enough yet. I think they reset a lot after the spring and after the summer. You kind of have these mile markers in the offseason. You check in and see where things going. So maybe someone has a lead. Maybe someone's faded. Maybe someone's come on really strong. But it kind of resets, and you got to prove that progress in this part of the camp. I think that's where you're at right now. I think, again, if they had it, they'd let you know, which I still think may be true. I just don't believe for a second that you go into your Monday meeting the first week of the season and say, all right, who's it going to be? You got to have a better idea than that. I think the reality is it's probably really close, and you are likely to see both in the first game and maybe throughout non-conference play, unless you have that no doubt about it guy, which you just don't get that sense right now, because I think they like the skills and like the separation of their skills too. They're not vastly different, but they're not the same player. Fox had a couple 300-yard passing games last year. Hawkins was a better, in the sense of this offense, runner. You could put them together as one, that'd be great. You can't, but could you find a way to make use of both of them? Rodriguez has done that before, but I think more modernly, you got to have one guy. Just don't know if they're there yet.
Mike, curious for the injury situation. One of the guys that we've talked about is the receiver they added from USC, who's dinged up a little bit, 6'5", looked to be a huge target for them. Can you kind of update us on the injury situation with West Virginia camp, and how injured are they?
Yeah, so Hawkins has been in a green jersey. That's your quarterback prospect here, right? And if he's been limited early on, not a concern so much. A lot of mental reps. Again, not even full pads until today, Tuesday. So you're not too concerned about that. And then just minimal reports about things, about this and that, and who's going to be available long-term, short-term, because we haven't had eyes on the team yet. So kind of hard to hide the facts when you can see this guy's in red, this guy's in green, but when you're not there, very easy to hide the fact. So Prince Strom was a guy who was kind of banged up a little bit. That's your 6'5" receiver you're talking about. Just haven't been a lot of whispers about that because you can ask about it. You're not going to get answers. He's not going to volunteer that stuff. I mentioned the ingrown toenail. That was a whole news cycle here. Who had the ingrown toenail? Because we're just kind of looking for morsels of information as to who's in, who's out, who's up, who's down. I think they're probably happy with that. That summer conditioning means that you don't have hamstrings or anything anymore. But as far as like a major thing, you don't hear anything like that about somebody in a brace, somebody in a like a scooter, like maybe protecting an ankle or an Achilles or something like that. Sometimes you'll see those things and hear those things in pictures or social media, but none of that so far. So I don't think we've gotten bad at our job. I hope. But I just don't think they have a lot of stuff yet. But again, haven't started hitting yet. And if everybody's in good shape, decent enough shape from running and conditioning for 8 weeks in the summer, you should survive that first week. But again, today, pads, hitting, maybe things add up now. But so far, so good, I think.
Mike, I want to talk about the defense. The pass rush was not bad last year, but the pass defense was a problem, allowing 265.4 yards per game and the worst in the Big 12. What do we expect to see from this pass defense this coming season?
Length. They went out and picked up a couple of 6'3" cornerbacks from junior college ranks and the group of 5. So some experience in the group of 5 in Shams Dianye, who was at Georgia State for a couple years, and then some junior college players who were 6'3", Rayshawn Reynolds, Damon Allen. Those are guys who could play right away. They kind of figured that they were in the right spot frequently last year, but couldn't jump with, couldn't run with, couldn't physically get players to the ground. So if they can get bigger and stronger there, they might be better. And then similar on the back end of the defense, but they actually got, I think, more talent there in the proven ranks, less junior college. Probably most notably Kamari Wilson from Memphis. He's been around power football, Florida, Arizona State before this. Had a great season at Memphis last year, very productive. He probably penciled into a back end position there. And I know that people are going to freak out about the cornerback play and such an unknown there. I just think you trust your corners more if you trust your safeties, and I think that they trust their safeties to do more things to help out in the passing game. If you can be a little bit more flexible in coverage, you feel better about who they're protecting and who they're covering beneath them. So that might give an extra layer of security to the secondary. Names, I mentioned a couple, and that could be it. We might be right on the spot there, but also you don't know. They recruited a lot from the transfer portal and junior colleges to play and to compete. Smaller players like Jair Rawlinson, who's a cornerback from Kent State, he's 5'9". We're talking about 6'3" cornerbacks. Well, why did they bring a 5'9" cornerback in? Might like him, but he might also be a guy that just matches up against certain receivers. If they can get into good matchups, that's still a strength. If he's a guy a couple times a year, but he's good, that means you're not getting abused in a matchup a couple times a year. And sometimes they were just in the bullseye for what teams were wanting to do and didn't have ways to adjust because maybe they didn't know what they were doing or didn't have confidence in it. But again, if it's the personnel and the plan, if you like your safeties, you like your corners, that works. And then to your point about pass rush, something I thought was pretty notable was they made sure that a strength remained a strength. We can pay a lot of attention to them going out and getting the physical corners or the quantity of corners and safeties to make their pass defense better. And it may work. It's a good idea. What should have helped their pass defense a lot more last year was their pass rush. Well, they went out and made sure their pass rush was good again. And they got some high-end, they think, value in the portal. Darius Wiley was number 1 in the country in TFLs in junior college, first team All-American, 3rd in sacks. He's 6'6". That should be a presence off the defensive end. Ezekiel Durham Campbell played at Coastal Carolina, was productive. Harper Holloman is kind of your overarching pass rusher from the linebacker level. They call him a bandit here. He led Conference USA in pressures and quarterback hurries last year. So he's a guy who's used to this before too. Players, and they want to make sure they can actually rush the passer and be effective. They were up and down last year. They had good games, they had bad games. So can they be more consistent? Because now if you marry your back end and your front end, you're in a better spot. If you can be consistent and strong again with your pass rush, that makes life easier. It makes the down shorter for your cornerbacks. And again, I think they like their safeties. If you can kind of connect those dots, pass rush, coverage, secondary, safety, probably feel better about the overall picture there too. So while those are separate issues, you can certainly link them together. And I think that they hope they found a way by remaining good, keeping that strength the strength, but also doing work, recruiting and developing players to help them in the corner and safety spots.
Are you buying what Rich Rod is selling, Mike? I certainly believe that this offensive line will be dramatically improved. I'm buying Cam Cook. I'm very much questioning the defense. And I think the quarterback will be okay, but I'm not sure. Are you buying this?
More so than last year. Last year, I thought they had a lot of toys and just didn't know like where the instructions were. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Not a knock. It was just
Right.
how can you do this? Like it's so new, and you don't know if they're going to be good or not. But you can look at how they want to play and do they have those parts, and it just didn't seem like it. This year, you're right. I mean, just some of the names that you mentioned there. Cook, #1 rusher in the country last year. Now he's in Rich Rodriguez's backfield. A small thing, but a big thing. They recruited a fullback. Like, they didn't have a fullback last year, and they got beat up in short yardage situations. So if they can hurry into 3rd and shorts or 4th and shorts and just tempo somebody and get a first down, now your offense on the field and you get to repeatedly blow the other team up with your pace and your tempo, that helps. That's like their mental but also physical advantage I think they have on people too. So that's a small thing that could be a big thing. The one thing with me is this, the offensive line. Like, I had major doubts about the offensive line last year, and that was the keystone to it all. If that was going to be good, all right, then these other parts can come together, can really fit into place and work. Didn't see that. The guys this year, I don't know how they can get this wrong. I just don't. Like, they have a collection of players. I would say that their 1 and 5 is probably set. They probably have their starting offensive line, except no one knows who their center is going to be right now. And like, the center was one of their better positions last year. Well, now they have 3 guys competing for the spot, and now you're getting to 6, 7, 8 people on an offensive line, where last year I'm never sure they felt good about 5. So they have these different combinations, you know, a freshman here, a college senior there, a guy who's played 1,700 snaps in college and hasn't given up a sack. You have this experience and these accolades, all conference players, you know, proven at least in the trenches. They played FBS football before. Last year, you're talking about guys who the year before were on the defensive line at LSU because they weren't offensive linemen. How's that going to work? You got guys who never started games or guys who are tackles in the FCS level, and you're thinking, oh, well, that'll transition. It doesn't work that way. It takes years and years to be good at this, which again makes you cautious. Can you throw 5 new ingredients in a dish and serve it and everybody likes it? Is it going to work right away? I don't know about that. I still haven't seen that. And again, you're talking about who's the center. It might be a guy who was a left guard his entire career at Wyoming before this. Can he be a center right away? Who's your left tackle? It could be a true freshman. Who's your left guard? It could be last year's left tackle, who maybe, again, was your best offensive lineman. Who's your right guard? Who's your right tackle? They were at other schools last year. That's a lot of volatility. Now, they have a really good coach who knows what he's doing. I think he makes it simple. They brought in Rick Trickett. That's probably as important as any transfer portal acquisition, maybe more so, especially at this position. I think if he steps back and he's trying to find out the best combination of 5, I think someone like him, it'd be very hard for him to look at this roster, have as much hands-on time with them in the spring and the summer and now the preseason, and not find the right 5. I just think that'd be a really hard thing to do. You'd have to try and wear yourself out, I think, to screw this up.
Mike, last one from me. Is West Virginia ceiling a bowl game this year, or is it something more?
All right, guys. I don't think they are the best team in the Big 12. I think that they are more likely to be closer to 500 than the top of the Big 12. I could see a situation where they get hot and confident early in the season, and you can look at their schedule and say, oh my gosh, West Virginia's 5-0 and ranked. You can do that. They just got to beat UVA and Charlotte, which is tough, a road game at Iowa State, and a home game against Oklahoma State. It could be 5-0. Okay? Now a bowl game is not your worry anymore. Now you're like, oh my gosh, they finished 7-5. What happened? So that's strange. So now can they get to 5-0? A lot's got to go right. But if this is a vintage Rodriguez team, it's going to figure things out. It's going to start with 12 plays, and it's going to end up with 8. And it's just going to hammer you with 8 plays. And if Zach Alley has the right people on defense, it gets better throughout the season as some of these new parts and inexperienced parts get comfortable, get better. I don't know if the last part of their schedule is a blessing or a curse, though. I just don't know. But if you're 5-0 and you're thinking big, you probably want to play late in the season when you figure some stuff out and you've got some guys, some reps and experience, and then who knows what has been exposed or what's happened to other teams. But their final couple of games are rough. You're talking Houston, Texas Tech, and Utah. A couple of them on the road. Kansas is in there too, and Kansas beat them silly last year. But if you're going to get to the top of the conference, you probably need to climb up and over Houston, Utah, and Texas Tech. If you're going to win the Big 12, you're going to have to win road games. I haven't even mentioned TCU. I think that's maybe the biggest game in their schedule. That's a road game before an open week before going to Texas Tech. if they can just behave themselves in there and they can get to that spot, those final 4 games with like 2 Big 12 losses, now it becomes very interesting. So the ceiling for me is that check back in like Halloween, and it may be a totally different story. But if you're looking at a team that's 5-0, why isn't the best ahead of them? They should be getting better and better and better because they're supposed to be better this year than they were last year. So why can't the second half of their second year be better than the first half of their second year?
Well said. Mike Casaza, you're the best. Appreciate you. Check out Mike's great work with Ear Sports and, of course, the podcast Country Roads Confidential. Thanks, Mike. Be well, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike Casaza, Ear Sports, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 today. That's a look at our Countdown to Kickoff series with West Virginia. Who do we have tomorrow?
Colorado
Buffaloes. And tomorrow's Countdown to Kickoff. With Tama Turner, I am Ari Temkin. Will Connerly is producing. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. We close the show out next.
Throws across his body, and it's intercepted. The senior, Lander Barton.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on Tuned In and watched on Big 12 Studios. Great to have you with us today and every day here in your home for the Big 12. Tune in and Big 12 Studios. A reminder that the Big 12 Volleyball opening set, it is Big 12's Media Days for Volleyball, will air today and tomorrow. You can catch that on Big 12 Studios as well as ESPN Plus. It'll be simulcast on ESPN Plus, Big 12 Studios, and BYU TV starting today at 1 o'clock. Spencer Litton and Amy Gant, along with Alex Jean Glover and Sophie Smith, will join the show. As coverage will continue on ESPN Plus on Wednesday, August 12th, beginning at 1. But today, starting at 1, will be on BYU Television, Big 12 Studios, and ESPN Plus. So should be a great opportunity to get a good sense of Big 12 volleyball. Big 12 volleyball has been one of the top conferences in the country in volleyball. You know, we think about the Texases of the world, the Penn States of the world, Nebraska, but Kansas has really been on the up and up. Kansas State as well has been on the up and up. Baylor historically has had a really good volleyball program. Arizona State as well. So this has been a very good conference. Will continue to be, and it's going to be exciting to see what the season is all about, which gets underway in September.
Sports is back. We have volleyball starting up. We have soccer starting up. We have football starting up. And we have a lot of nice and fun surprises and expectations for the Big 12. I think it's going to be a very fun start to the year.
All right, so 1 o'clock, again, on ESPN Plus, Big 12 Studios, or BYU Television. You can get what are they calling it? Big 12 Volleyball
Set.
Opening set. So check that out. I caught this, thought it was really interesting. So there is a high school in Georgia that is now charging fees as high as $25 to take photos and videos at its game this year, quote unquote, due to the growing number of individuals requesting sideline access for private clients or commercial purposes, end quote.
What? So does this high school have like a lot of like 5-star recruits? Are they like really good?
I think you could probably make that case. I think what you have is you've got parents that want to take video and make profiles and highlight reels for their kids.
Sure.
I think you have newer and newer companies that are getting into the fold that are, their service is providing video of players. So they're trying to get, I think you've got content creator. I was at the gym yesterday and there was this woman set up with her phone on a stand, and she was there for 45 minutes in the same spot talking to the camera, doing a work. It's like everywhere you go, there's content creators.
That is true.
The world of content creators. And so it's like you've got all these different factors at play here. Will, I know you do a lot of high school football games. Have you seen this?
There are a lot of people that will create content and, yes, do a lot of high school football games. And it's interesting because there's the media outlets that maybe are getting photos for the digital newspaper, right? But then
which are working media, right?
Then there's the receiver's friend who wants to make a hype video. So, and I saw this as well. It's Northgate High School, and $200 for a yearly pass, or $25 per game. So I see the sidelines crowded definitely in Texas, and people want some of those cool hype videos. So I guess they're doing this to try to detract, I guess, the non-professionals. I don't know, but you're kind of lumping everyone together in one. So
yeah, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Is I get what they're doing and
right.
why they're doing it. The problem is you're now squeezing. So think about local newspapers that cover Northgate athletics. They don't have a lot of money. They're not flush with revenue to now, they were able to cover these games, and that was a huge service to the community. If you're now asking them to pay $200 a year, I know it's not a ton, but these are small newspapers with very slim margins, even slimmer than before. You're squeezing out the folks that have been around for a long time. It's crazy.
It's weird too, because we went to the Big 12 football championship, right? How many people were, and this is a whole different level than high school football, but how many people were on the sidelines? Tons, right? And I get it, high school football is a different level, but those people weren't paying, right? They were going and applying for a media credential.
Yeah, but the issue is the media credential with the Big 12. They're going to put a little bit more stock into the outlet, whereas in high school, you like you said, you've got a friend of the receiver that's trying to make a hype video.
Got a YouTube channel.
He's not going to get credentialed for a Big 12 championship.
Right.
Yeah, no, I this is like a mixed emotion thing, because part of what you said, the local newspaper, local media outlets are kind of being squeezed out with this. But partly this is the new market. I mean, content creation is a thing now, and look, a fellow Big 12 school, Arizona State, it is a degree. You can get a degree in content creation at Arizona State University. I hate to say this for the newspapers, even some smaller local markets, but that is, out with the old and in with the new. I don't want anybody to lose their job. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah, but I while I don't disagree with you,
Yeah.
there is a public service that these newspapers are providing
100% agree.
that you're not going to get if you're squeezing them out. You're not going to get that coverage. Like, you don't have YouTubers going to your high school. You know what I mean? Like, I think what they're doing is they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. The bathwater is the friend of the receiver who wants to make the hype video.
Right.
The baby is the newspaper that's been covering your school for tons of years.
Right.
And it's the old thing, like, you want to have a good game and get your name in the newspaper, And there's, like, no matter where you grew up, there were local newspapers who were committed to local coverage of high schools because there wasn't any coverage of that. And I don't know that coverage is being replaced by content creators.
My very first internship when I was 19 years old was West Hartford Community Television up in Connecticut, and we covered both Hall High School, my high school, and the other public high school, Conard High School. And for everything that you just said, I hate that content creation might put West Hartford TV out of business. Yeah, because like Hall and Conard, they have used West Hartford Community Television for probably going on 30, 40 years now. And that's going to be a lost art, probably similar to what we're seeing at this high school in Georgia. While I get the content creation, it's cool, it's new, it's hip, and anybody can kind of make it to some degree, it puts a lot of people in jeopardy, which I don't know. What's the future going to be like? I don't know.
Yeah, no, and again, like, if you're replacing one sense of coverage with another, that's fine. I'm worried about losing the coverage that you had and not replacing it with anything else.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's problematic.
And if you have a credential, I mean, I don't know enough about this story, but are they actually charging? They're just charging, like, the people who want to make the hype videos, right? They're not going to be charging.
Yeah, their statement reads, "We've received several questions about our new media access policy. Wanted to provide some additional clarification. This policy does not apply to official media outlets, such as the Noonan Times-Herald and other recognized news organizations. We value the important role they play in showcasing our student athletes. We'll continue to welcome them at Northgate athletic events." Exactly what we're talking about here. The policy is designed to improve safety, security, and event operations by managing the growing number of individuals requesting sideline and court access to photograph or film events for private clients or commercial purposes. Limiting access to essential personnel and approved credentialed media helps us provide a safer environment for our student athletes, coaches, officials, and spectators. Reading it further, I actually love it because it's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. They are adding an extra feature to their outlet saying, hey, if you do content creation, this is how you can get it.
Well, and I think a lot of pro sports and college sports have struggled with this. Where do you draw the line, right? It used to be pretty cut and dried in what was media and what wasn't. And I think college and pro they don't do a good enough job of vetting and allowing certain, like, they just have this cut and dried, it's black and white rule, and it's like, but there's probably some really good reporters and writers that are with some of these outlets you're not recognizing that you probably should do a better job of understanding that those are people that need that access because they're good at their jobs. But it's just a black and white, like, if you're either at this line or you're below it, and it doesn't matter how good you are or how respected you are or whatever, you're not going to be there. That's something that all pro sports and college sports has struggled with, is who to credential and who not to credential. And I think, like, credentialing everybody's a problem, probably not the right move. I wonder if charging, especially in college, is sort of the new thing that they'll uncover. The problem is, in some of these cases, these colleges want that coverage from certain areas. It's just really interesting to see kind of what's out there, because I'm not entirely certain of the entire landscape, but the landscape is growing with not just content creators, but platforms that are, showing players and I mean, again, like there's like Rivals type platforms that are digging deeper into the film aspect of players. What's the one that everybody uses for high school? Huddle. Thank you. Huddle, right? And there's plenty more like Huddle that have come around more recently, to sort of leverage the current state of affairs. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I think this is interesting, and it going forward, because other schools are going to do something similar to this if they're not already, other high schools and whatnot. And it just makes you think from a college and a professional level, eventually they're going to have to change it. To your point, Ari, vet better. You can't bring everybody, but you can't exclude everybody either. Not saying that they do. I know they don't, but they have to do a better job at vetting and saying who they let in and not just saying no to somebody because they might be on a smaller platform.
Yeah.
And think about $25. If you just want to be on the sideline, if they're going to say that's
point.
Well, I want to be on the sideline. I'll bring a camera, but I really just want to be on the sideline. Watch my son play.
Right.
For $25?
Right.
Yeah, great point. Good business opportunity there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if schools will start to do it, colleges will start to do it, and it'll be way more than $25. I can guarantee that. All right. Thanks, as always, to our great work from all the people that make this show happen, including Anthony Smith on the Big 12 studio side. Thanks to Will Connolly. He's done a fantastic job over the last week and a half filling in for various personnel on this show. Thanks to Taman Turner. I'm Ari Tepke. James Westlake is back tomorrow. We've got our countdown to kickoff featuring Colorado on tomorrow's show, plus more athletic directors as well on the way. So stay tuned. Make sure to bookmark both the channel on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios. We are presented every single day by our friends at Modelo. For now, we're out. Peace.
Peace.